Monday, March 14th. The Zencasters is crowded for the big day, even with Casey on RA duty and Connor having throat cancer. Hidden in the chat is the Element, waiting to strike like commenters trying to win a Filmatic giveaway. And I'm there too, watching. 2 years of podcasts have turned me into a nocturnal animal. I must choose my episodes carefully. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. They're all big platforms. I can't be everywhere. But they don't know where I am. We have video now, for when it's needed. But when that upload hits the web, it's not just a podcast. It's a warning. To them. Tier is a tool. They think I'm hiding in the Discord. But I am the Discord. I wish I could say I'm making a difference, but I don't know. Average watch time of 4 minutes and total viewers, followers. 2 years later, they're all down. And now this, the Batman podcast. Another superhero movie. Filmatic's eating itself. Maybe it can't be saved, but I have to try to push myself. These recording nights all roll together in a rush, behind the mask. Sometimes in Final Cut Pro, I have to force myself to remember everything that happened.
Yeah, Darian, I thought I was gonna do the intro. But good work.
Alright. Okay.
Good work, buddy.
Everything good?
Hope you're doing well.
No worrying.
Okay, so without further ado, let's begin the podcast, guys. Salutations and welcome back to Filmatic. Today we're going to be discussing The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves. Now, before we get into that, guys, okay, let me get this off. All right, look, that's over. I thought I was going to do a whole thing, that whole intro, but let's talk about the Filmatic giveaway, as mentioned by Darian in that wonderful intro. The Suicide Squad, guys.
Wow,
Come on. It's begging to be taken by you. To be given away. Both Blu Ray and normal DVD are included. It's a great movie. It started DC's kind of streak of movies, I'd say, with this, and it keeps going. So hopefully you guys do that. All you have to do is like the Instagram post at Filmatic Podcast in announcement of this episode, and share it to your story. So go ahead and do that at Filmatic Podcast on Instagram. So today we're going to be talking about The Batman. It was released March 4th, 2022, and it is one of the biggest movies, already the biggest movie of the year, and the biggest movie in the box office since Spider-Man No Way Home. And I'd like to talk a lot about not just the movie itself, but also the development of it, how it came to be. As we know, it's separate from Warner Brothers DCEU. It's totally separate from that. Talk about how that came to be. There's a lot of interesting kind of factoids behind that. So before we do that, let me introduce my guests. First up, Connor Park is back. How's it going, Connor?
It's going good. I'll be here for the full episode this time.
True. Connor famously left in the middle of the pop star episode.
Yeah, I had to watch a movie with my mom. So
commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm in a new spot. I'm here for the whole time.
All right. Excited to have you back. Casey's also back. What's up, Casey?
Haven't been here since Spider-Man No Way
Spider-Man.
Home. Happy to be back. Yeah. Great movie.
All right.
Happy to be here.
Good to see you. I was gonna say, you resemble someone, someone related to the
I don't know if we
Batman.
should make that
No,
joke.
okay, nope, we'll move on.
Jim Carrey. The Jim Carrey brother. Yeah,
Jim Carrey's Riddler.
that's who we're
Jim
talking
Carrey's
about.
Riddler.
That's who we're... Yep.
Speaking of resemblance, Mr. Darian Vengeance Nigro, what's up?
It's good to be here. It's good to be back.
Are you gonna talk in that voice the whole time? It's pretty based.
Was I just talking in the voice? I didn't even mean to.
I kind of.
That's funny.
You kind of were. Yeah.
I guess I just went into monotone mode. Sorry.
Can't believe you went through all this effort just for this podcast.
Yeah, it's all for the
Just did.
podcast.
Yeah, right. Evan, what's going on, man?
Ooh, what up? How's it going?
What's going on?
Everybody?
Good to see you. I love all the lights in your background.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah.
Good.
And Octavia was here. Octavia? Octavia, we can't hear you. What has the Riddler done?
What does a liar do?
Can you not hear me right now?
Now we can.
No, we can hear you now.
I was just making sure. What's up?
What's going on? Are you excited to talk about the Batman?
Yeah, it's actually one of my... I told Darian on the way home yesterday, I was like, this is my favorite movie I've watched in a really, really long time.
For sure.
Agreed.
For sure. So, yeah, let's just jump right into it. I guess, first off, what I want to talk about is how this movie came to be, right? So as we all know, there is a DC extended universe. Those movies consist of Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad 2016, Wonder Woman, Justice League, but the Whedon cut, Wonder Woman 2, Aquaman, thank you.
Flash movie.
Yes, and those
I
movies
think you guys forgot
very
one.
Shazam.
No.
No.
Well, I did forget that. So
The one that's going to change
Wonder
the
Woman?
power dynamic.
Wonder Woman
Shut up,
1984?
Oh no,
Dude,
the one with the fucking
Black Adam.
It's
Yeah.
about drive video.
Fuck Black
What about
Adam.
Moon
Fuck The
Man?
Rock. Moon Man.
What's it called again?
Oh, Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Not
Moon
part
Knight's
of
in the
DC.
DCU?
Marvel.
I know.
I don't know.
Oh, you're so fucking
Um,
funny.
It's just
I'm looking at my
dark,
mic, not my camera. I don't know why I was doing that.
It was
Whoa.
a joke. It looks like a pretty dark Marvel movie. It looks like they're trying to copy.
Isn't it a show?
It's actually a Disney Plus series.
Oh.
I mean,
Who
Moon
cares?
Knight has always been
Who
like
cares?
Batman. Yeah.
The Batman of Marvel, so to speak.
It's like
I feel like that's a
Batman.
poor simplification of the character, but that's besides the point.
It's like
The
that. It's like
schizophrenic.
he's like the Deadpool of Marvel.
No, it's like Batman and Yu-Gi-Oh combined because there's two people and one that's Egyptian.
I know. I don't understand. Yeah, so DCU is kind of banking up on movies again, but the released movies have a pretty wide range of receptions, right? Most famously, I feel like the biggest downturn was when Batman v Superman came out. It was panned by both critics and audiences. And that's kind of where our story starts, because it was in August 2013 that Ben Affleck first debuted in Dawn of Justice and also revealed his plans for a standalone Batman film that he would direct and write himself. And it was expected to immediately start work the year following the movie, so 2017. And he did write a script, and it was heavily based on the Arkham Asylum story in the comics, and the whole movie was set to kind of, well, 3/4 of the movie was set to take place in Arkham Asylum, actually. I don't know if anyone knew that,
I
but
didn't know
it
that.
was going to be kind of like an Arkham Asylum movie. with him versus Deathstroke, and also seeing all of his famous villains in the asylum.
And then Ben Affleck went to Arkham Asylum himself, what we call rehab.
Alcoholic Anonymous.
Arkham Asylum IRL.
Alcoholic asylum.
Jesus. So, well, that's skipping ahead a little bit. Basically, when they
Spoilers.
he finished the first draft of his script, and then he decided that he didn't feel up to directing. He didn't feel like he could direct and be in the movie, so he stepped down, and they started looking for a director. Now, in their search for a director for this movie, which also, I should mention, was called The Batman originally, so he came up with that. They came across Matt Reeves, who was working on the Planet of the Apes films at the time, and they had a meeting with him, and they discussed it, and Matt Reeves decided that, well, he felt what they were doing was valid and could be a good movie. He felt like he wanted more creative control to kind of take his own spin on it, and he wanted to do more of his kind of own spin on things with the movie. So they parted ways, and the movie never got made because, as mentioned, Ben Affleck went to IRL Arkham Asylum and got a divorce.
Dropped his Duncan.
And dropped his Duncan, as those remember from the Justice League podcast.
No, Gotham.
But yeah,
Gotham always likes a comeback story, right?
good. That's good. But yeah, so Ben Affleck had all those personal issues and also had a terrible experience, in his own words, working on the Justice League reshoots with Joss Whedon, and decided that he didn't want to be Batman or do any superhero movies anymore. So he dropped out. Warner Brothers went back to Matt Reeves and said, hey, do you want to make this movie for us and do what you want to do with it? Basically, to put the story kind of short. And he did. And here we are today with The Batman, a movie that is not connected in any way to the DCEU. Are there any thoughts on any of that?
Why is it
I
called
think
the DCEU instead of the DCU?
fair question, Connor.
I think because, to be fair, okay, first of all, I don't know the answer. Second of all, yeah, actually, I don't think there is.
Well, maybe it's because they have ongoing
yes,
other
DC Unlimited, DC. They have other things with that acronym.
Oh,
true.
Right,
I
they
was
have DC
gonna say
Unlimited.
maybe because they have so many separate individual standalone movie universes that they want to
They want to still be able to.
they want to have one cohesive one. Because I don't know how their TV shows play into anything. But
Yeah,
obviously-
because I guess technically, based on how you define it, this movie is in the extended universe. It's just not in the same.
and I think an
True.
important
World.
key thing there is well, I guess I don't really know. I mean, the way I look at it is those the Dark Knight movies and shit are seen as people still refer to those as DC movies, right? But I don't know, when
But it's
people
not.
talk about the MCU, they're talking about Iron Man on, and the only things really
Right.
for reference before that are
Blade, X-Men,
yeah,
Spider-Man,
yeah, and then those are technically
Fantastic Four.
Fox, all of DC is Warner Bros. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Marvel's just spread across different studios, so
Yeah.
or it was
Sure.
at least.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just looked it up, and the DCU says it's essentially a universe where all of the DC universe is involved. So it's Superman and Batman interact versus the DCEU is their own little environments where they exist by themselves, pretty much.
Okay.
Right.
So it's kind of alternate where Superman is
Basically-
in the picture.
They fumbled the bag from the start, right? There shouldn't be this much conversation about the fucking name of their fucking franchise.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is a pretty telltale red flag for how the rest of the story goes.
Yeah.
Right? Because now in the current continuity, as I was explaining this the other day to you guys after we saw the movie, right? So you have Matt Reeves's Batman, which is in its own universe and is going to have supposedly 2 sequels and 2 spin-off shows on HBO Max. One of which is the Penguin show. Oh, it got canceled officially.
The cop one got canceled.
Yeah, so it was a cop one and Penguin one, and I guess it kind of got sort of combined, but now it's just like a Penguin one. Yeah, basically, okay. They're calling it the Penguin or whatever. So that's going to be an HBO Max show along with its 2 movies. So that's its own thing. And then you have the main DCEU, which is all those movies we listed before. Now that universe's Batman is Michael Keaton. No, which is pretty funny. Yeah, so for those who don't know, it'll be introduced in The Flash officially when it releases. Now delayed to next year, by the way. It was going to come out this summer, but it got delayed to next year. The other day. It's going to introduce Michael. It's going to be Flashpoint. So for those who don't know, that's a thing that happens in the comics where the Flash goes back in time, usually to save his mother, and it rewrites everything that happens in the universe. So they're going to use that to fucking erase all their mistakes, and in doing that, bring in Michael Keaton. That's really loud. Michael Keaton as the main Batman for their universe, and that's confirmed because they're also filming the Batgirl HBO movie right now, and in that there are on-set photos of Michael Keaton as Batman. So it's pretty messy, to say the least. And The Flash will also feature Ben Affleck's last appearance as Batman, as his Batman, to sort of write him off. And then on the other end of that, you have Zack Snyder's continuity, which is supposedly done. Who knows, though? Where you have...
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, sorry.
This is... Okay, cut this. Connor, I don't mean to... But you have a mute button. Like, please just mute yourself if you're eating chips.
I'm eating simple crackers, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Just my bit for the episode.
Well, that changes everything, Connor. Don't mute yourself now.
And Casey, it's all your fault because you gave Connor the soup and crackers.
That's fair. I did cause this. We're one and the same.
Is there a way to hold on, my audio in post?
Yeah, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Why don't you do it by muting yourself? And it seems like you already have been, so...
Alright. I don't even know what I was saying.
I was going to say, we should come up with a little, if you were Connor, please press mute. What is the price for, anyone got anything that rhymes with mute?
Soup.
Yeah, there you go. Close enough.
What is the price of your crackers? We could put that in somewhere.
Who says that? What's the...
Casey, you want to say?
So what am I saying?
You or Octavio, you both look the most Riddler right now.
What does a muter do when he's dead? He mutes.
You say that. I'll do the soup and crackers fine.
Alright, so I'll be like, do you guys hear Connor eating or something? And then you guys...
Alright.
Okay, let's...
Connor, you gotta... No, don't put the crackers away. God damn it.
What did you do?
What if we just left all of this in the podcast?
We should, honestly.
At this point,
20 minutes in, we haven't talked about the Batman.
Because I'm doing the intro.
I know.
Alright. Okay, so then you have Zack Snyder's continuity.
So we're not doing this.
No, I thought we agreed that we were going to leave it in now. Because if you got too far gone.
Already. It's gone.
Yeah, okay, it's in there. It's in the podcast. They just heard all of that. So let's jump back in. Zack Snyder's continuity, which is from Man of... Stop giggling, you fucking... Man of what? This is why we have 4 minutes, okay? This is why they only listen for 4 minutes. Okay. Zack Snyder also has his Justice League, which he wants to turn into something, but Warner Brothers isn't allowing, and they're saying is officially done. But is it really done because they brought back his Justice League, which wasn't supposed to happen? So I'm saying it's a fucking mess, basically, and that's the gist of what I'm saying about the
Fair.
how we got to this movie.
It's a blessing in disguise, though.
Well, from Zack Snyder's thing, we do still have Peacemaker, season 2 renewal.
Well, that's not connected to Zack Snyder.
Oh, is it not? Okay.
No. Yeah, that's based off the Suicide Squad, which was a soft reboot of 2016's Suicide Squad. So it's still a mess. But
where does the
Yeah.
Joker fit in? The Joker.
Oh wait, was Zack Snyder's the first one?
Joker.
I got him
We're
back.
Also
talking
the
about the Joker. We
The
haven't
Joker
talked
is
about
also
Joker. Joker is
another
also
branch.
a movie that exists.
Joker, Suicide Squad, The Batman. 3 amazing movies.
And that's
Yeah.
what we can talk about is how all of those things that are completely like they've given a director control and not like tried to force a fucking like cinematic universe narrative to try and emulate what Marvel's doing. All of those have been better than anything they've tried. So I don't care about. I'll watch Flashpoint. Like I think that'll be interesting.
because Michael
Hopefully.
Keaton's in it, basically.
Yeah, and
what I
like
mean?
the story where they like what you're saying about them like potentially just like changing everything they've done about the universe so far. I think that'll be good. But like, I don't know. I don't give a shit about Black Adam. There's another DC movie that's coming, Aquaman 2. Could not fucking care less. Didn't watch the first one. Will never watch an Aquaman movie. Why would I?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, not to launch into it, but like Aquaman had some pretty solid like things in it that kind of reflected what makes these movies we talked about that are so good, where it's like kind of that it's got some pretty solid, straightforward infusion of James Wan's kind of style that I like. But the problem is it's just super bloated. It's fucking 3 hours long, and unlike this 3 hour long movie, you can feel it. You know what I mean? It's fucking heavy as hell, and I feel like that was its main problem. And that doesn't mean necessarily I want to see Aquaman 2. I don't know if I'll be running to theaters to see it, but I'd be down to give it
The
a chance.
first Aquaman is 3 hours long.
I could be wrong. I guess
If
Is
it's
it? Or
If it's
over,
not,
if
and
it's,
it feels like that, that's
feels
even
like it.
worse.
if
it's
it's
2
over,
hours and 24 minutes. So there you go.
just like average
Holy
superhero length movie, it just feels fucking
It's
okay.
very long. Well, the thing is also the other problem it has is it follows a weird structure where it's like people talking in the ocean, followed by a surprise explosion and then an action sequence. It happens like 6 times. People will be talking like, "Oh, we have to go to war with the fucking mermaids," or that's not even a thing. I don't know what it's called. But
That's what it feels like to me from.
that's what it feels
from
like.
afar.
And then something explodes and they're like, "Oh my god!" And then an action sequence happens.
Yeah.
Not that all the action is any bad though. There's some good action.
CGI nightmare. It feels like it would be to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
When you film an
Um,
entire movie underwater, I don't know. It seems like terrible.
Speaking of Avatar 2, no, we don't. But it's the reason they moved the movies, right?
Yeah.
What?
So for context, now that you brought it up, Avatar 2 is fully or majorly taking place underwater. It is in fact rumored to be called Avatar 2 Way of the Water. So
Actors have learned to hold their breath underwater so that James Cameron can get shots
Oh.
without bubbles in them.
it's actually it's really interesting
Round
because of the
face.
tracking dots they have on their faces. They have a problem with reflections in the water and bubbles because it interferes with the tracking dots. So they have to learn a special way of holding their breath underwater and can't use scuba gear. So
So it's
It's
practically
almost like-
filmed underwater.
Yes.
well, they built like huge like
in a
300-gallon tanks.
500,000 gallon pool that James Cameron has spent probably a good chunk of the $1 billion budget for this 12-year-old movie on.
Christ.
What the fuck? It's just, doesn't it sound good? Doesn't the movie sound awesome?
Sam Worthington must be acting his ass off in that movie. bro.
It'll
Dude,
never not be funny.
it's gonna be tier.
As Sam Worthington would say.
Avatar.
Dude, Avatar.
I want to ask you guys one thing though about Avatar, even though it's like one of the highest, if not the highest, grossing film. I don't know if it still is of all
Mhm.
time, but
I think
name 2 of the characters in the movie.
Sam Worthington.
Sam Worthington.
No, the
The actors?
characters in the movie,
Okay,
not the actors.
I know Jake Sully because they always that's like the
Okay.
50% of the lines in the
I don't
movie
know
is a
a
fucking
single
blue
one of
person.
them, man.
Oh, it's
the
the second
Avatar.
one.
The Avatar.
No, like
He's called the Avatar.
Welcome to Pandora. I don't know.
no, the thing is that nobody knows, like nobody remembers
Unobtainium.
characters'
Unobtainium.
names.
Is that
It's
what
so
it's
fucking
called?
weird.
I think Avatar is pretty soulless. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, what about Batman? How much soul does Batman have?
Has a
Because
lot.
we're talking about Avatar.
So okay. So what do you guys think about the Batman?
Thanks. I
Well, comparing it to Avatar.
Do you think the Batman will make more money than the Avatar?
I mean, jokes aside, obviously that's impossible. But
Yeah.
given the pandemic and everything,
Wait,
Yeah.
also, I just want to clarify really quick. You can cut this. Didn't Spider-Man beat Avatar? Officially?
I don't know.
I think it did.
yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look into that. Also, to clarify, we can cut this. Connor, you're muted. I muted you because you were chewing.
No Way Home beat Avatar.
How long have I been muted? I think I said things.
Oh,
Since you
wow.
were eating.
I
'Cause it was
unmuted
loud.
myself. Oh, the soup eating was loud?
Yeah.
Fuck.
And then I
I'm
put a
so
message in
sorry.
the chat, but you didn't see it.
No, I haven't zoomed into the cameras.
Okay.
Hopefully I didn't say anything.
All right. Let's restart.
Alright, Darian, read the intro again.
No.
All right. Nabil, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, I know that just to finish off our Avatar talk, because I do feel like we should wrap it up if we fucking brought it up. In that Spider-Man, Darian did it. I don't think it made more money than Avatar did.
No, it
No, it
stayed
didn't.
number 1 for more consecutive weeks.
Okay.
Though.
That's
Which was
pretty
the record.
that's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah.
I also want to say for those in the who listen to the podcast, I would say treat the first bit of the podcast as a news section, so to speak, because I feel like
That does usually happen.
that's what I'm saying. Like it usually happens. I don't feel like sometimes I feel like, oh man, are we being shitty for not jumping straight into the movie? But I feel like it's a natural progression of conversation. I just want to say that.
Agreed. Agreed.
No, I gotta agree.
Yeah, and I'm also someone who doesn't mind if fucking Avatar somehow comes up when we talk about it, because that's what I like about the podcast format. It's just us talking. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, if it was just us,
Yeah.
only talking about the movie, I think it would be less fun for us, less fun
Yeah.
for the people who do listen.
I mean,
That
as
said-
far as we're concerned, we've already passed 4 minutes, so
True.
Damn.
We're going to be, I think, 5 of like the maybe 6 or 7 people.
Yeah,
who listen
well,
to this
yeah.
entire thing. Because
That's what I was gonna say. We're
The-
the major listeners of the podcast.
yeah, no, I mean, it's not even just people that are on it. But, like the people, like if you're on the podcast, you are also probably one of the listeners, and like I think it's a circle.
I don't
It's a
even think
closed
so. I feel like
circle.
I feel like
the 4 viewers.
we stop at 4 minutes.
They think I'm hiding in the view count.
hiding. Yeah. The view count. No, seriously though, like the pop star episode on YouTube has like 2 views, not even like
1.5 views. It says 1.5.
all right.
Bill watched it and Connor watched it. 1.5 views.
Negative 3 subs on the channel. Okay.
All right. Let's actually jump into it, guys.
Okay.
Alright, let's do
The
it.
Batman. Okay. I will be the first to say this movie rocks me to the core from the start. I mean, that introduction is one of the best introductions we've seen. I feel like in a Batman movie, possibly in a superhero movie, I can't think of another one off the top of my head right now, but I feel like that's the position I hold. And just a great opener. Let's talk about it. Connor, you were gonna say something.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the opener for me. Walking into the movie theater and there being a bar with custom the Bat and the Cat drinks as my introduction to this movie watching experience. Incredible.
Yeah.
Due to personal taste, went for the Cat, which was a Chardonnay-based drink with sparkling water and a bit of peach liqueur. It was quite expensive, but in the end, quite worth it, and made the movie watching experience all that much better.
And also, it was great because AMC once again hooked Filmatic up with a showing. I should mention, as I'm obligated to mention. Fucking CEO of AMC. What was his name? Adam Aaron.
Hashtag ad.
Reached out to me.
Ad.
Yeah, hashtag ad right here, guys.
Hashtag
This is the
spawn.
ad break. Adam Aaron reached out to me once again. He said, "Hey, you and Darian enjoyed Suicide Squad so much. You gotta see this other DC movie, The Batman." And we said, "Hey, if you're paying us, we're there." And we were there.
I was actually not allowed to return.
Yeah.
I took the place. I took the place for this.
I brought Connor instead. Yeah.
I got a
Dan
weird
enjoyed a little too much.
Snapchat from the CEO, and he was saying that we could go on that Tuesday night, the early showing, and then he kind of weirdly retracted it, but didn't really make that clear. So I was under the impression that no one was allowed to go that night anymore, and that
It sounds like you just misread your Snapchats.
Well,
Well, it was also Connor's dad's birthday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the
it was-
main problem, wasn't it? Not
and
problem. There was a miscommunication, I think, with the CEO, and I put him in his place for that, and I let him know that we don't appreciate that kind of thing here. So that won't
Thank you.
happen again. But he did hook us up with that showing. We got the free comic somewhere around here. I have it.
I got
But there you go.
shit.
One more thing I want to say.
you got a
it's
free
pretty
comic
good.
guy.
Damn.
That. It's the first issue of The Long Halloween, which I actually do have. I've known this since I was a
That's
child.
sick as fuck.
It's the
What?
first edition of this book. First issue, I should say. Sorry. It's one of the best Batman comics, and
Wait, you got that, Nabil?
no, this is just something I.
Oh,
own.
okay.
I'm just saying it's the
holy
first. It's the first issue, so this much of it.
That's
right?
so much
Awesome.
better than the Suicide Squad comic, though. It's an actual comic. That's dope.
Yeah.
Something I do want to say though to the AMC CEO is that I'm glad you helped Filmatic out because me and the boys last year around February, March helped you get out of the gutter with the whole stocks thing, right? So you
Did
still
you
got money in your
tell me?
pocket because you and the boys.
I was not a part of.
I had nothing to do with that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Mr. Aaron, please. I'm not the one who tanked your stock. Right?
No, we helped him get out of the gutter, bro. We didn't tank it. We fucking shot it up, bro. AMC,
We
Black
shut it
Diamond,
up.
We
GameStop.
shut it up.
We single-handedly
We did
did
not
that.
Yeah, no.
This is
We-
like
we
the
don't have
No,
Batman.
any
like
for
none
that.
of us actually
This is like
invested.
the Riddler trying to say that Batman was part of his fucking scheme, bro. Like, you brought, I didn't bring AMC into the light. No, but thanks. Shout out to AMC. Thanks for that. Thanks for the comic. And that also brings up, not to go the other way, but The Long Halloween, heavily inspired in this movie by The Long Halloween. The movie is inspired by it, I should say. It's a great Batman mystery. Takes the place over numerous holidays in Gotham City. There's a serial killer. All the players from the movie are involved, and it's very clear to see the inspiration came from it. And it was a good choice, I feel like. And I feel like also it's the one movie that actually did, because if you ever go back and read interviews or watch videos about the Dark Knight trilogy,
Should I answer it?
I think you should.
Probably put it on vibrate
Can you?
first.
Holy shit! Can you not put the phone number on the screen during that?
Yes.
Jesus Christ!
we'll blur it out.
All right, I'll be back.
Okay. The Riddler calls. When the Riddler calls, you gotta go. All right. So, if you watch any interviews for the Dark
Hello?
Knight trilogy, or really any Batman movie, I've always seen pretty much every time the director's like, "Oh yeah, I was really inspired by The Long Halloween." It's like Are you? Because there really isn't any inspiration beyond the fact that Batman and Catwoman are in your movie, and I feel like this is the first movie to actually take inspiration from it and not just like say it for the sake of saying it. Like, oh, I read a comic. You know what I mean? So as a comic reader, I like that aspect of the movie. Jumping back into the intro, though, man, I mean that was crazy. The monologue, the introduction of the device of using the diary as a storytelling tool, something else that was in the Long Halloween, was great. And yeah, are there any thoughts on the intro further from what Connor said?
I wanted to say I
Sorry.
praised the intro, but then
Oh,
failed
guys,
to forget that.
I found the location. The location is in, believe this, room 100. I need to get there fast. I need to, guys. I have to go.
I wonder where they're going.
I was gonna say I think I praised the intro a lot, and normally when I say that I'm referring to the sequence after the Riddler's first kill, right? I
Yeah,
think
me
that's what
too.
you're also
Yeah,
referring
I
to.
think that's what we're all
think-
referring to.
Yeah, I think that sequence is really good, and it is kind of like the intro to the movie and obviously Batman.
And the
But
city.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say though, I think that the first part with the Riddler, also great intro in and of itself separately.
Very true. I have to
Um,
agree.
It's a good point. It's easy to forget it. Yeah.
Dude, Ave Maria, the song, the way it
Ave
replaces
Maria?
throughout the score,
Yeah.
the way he sings it, and it's good choice. I think also, not to jump far ahead here, something I've noticed, I have watched the movie 4 times.
Yeah.
I've watched 12 hours of this movie in the past 2 weeks. Anyways, I think there's a cool attention to detail with like him looking at the skylight, and I don't know, like the way they set up the voyeur perspective of him and use
Mhm.
it is good, but also after that, just for separate reasons, like I don't know, I think there's a lot of attention to detail in that scene, and I think it continues like. Again, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but maybe I'll put a pin in this to come back to it. The camera very closely like pays attention to like where the Riddler is looking. Like I use the example of
Yeah.
the skylight. The same thing happens with Batman after the intro when he goes to investigate the murder. And I think it's interesting with the contacts in his eyes, things like
Mhm.
that. Outside of the intro just being really good, something I noticed.
Yeah.
Evan, what's going on there?
Sorry, we were just Sam just came in. He was smashing a bug. Hello.
How's it going, Sam? How'd you feel about the Batman?
He's gone. I enjoyed it though. I thought it was I don't know, it was pretty funny. I for what it's worth, yeah, I had a good time watching it. I did enjoy the second half of it more though, I will say. So I might have more to say when we get around to that portion.
All right.
Yo, but I will say I kind of like the costumes that all like the villains had and stuff in the beginning. Like there's that one guy with that weird like trash bag mask, and then later in the
Drop head
film
mask.
you see like a billboard or something like painted on a building that has like his mask on it with like an X over it. I also like the people with like the white and black face paint and how that like kid who's halfway into his initiation kind of has like half the face paint on.
Yeah.
I did like that, and he was like, yeah, obviously didn't want to be there, just very clearly.
It's another thing that's tied to the intro. I feel like when they're on the subway primarily, but also when they get off, there's also attention paid to like, you see the kid's reaction, and then you're like seeing him look at Batman or look at the guy that they're gonna beat up like from his perspective. in reference to what I was saying, I feel like the camera is like very intentionally like reflective of the character's view of these situations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
It continues throughout, but I noticed it like predominantly in those first or three segments.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys touched on a lot of things there. I definitely agree with the costumes. They were all great. And that guy's mask was, I think, literally a drop. I think it's to signify the drops as the drug in the movie, and the drop he's literally a drop head. And I think that's what the billboard was as well, like being like, "Oh, don't do drops." So
Yeah, it's the same logo that's on the packaging also on those two.
true.
scenes.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that detail. And yeah, I mean, there's a shot when he's like, also we'll talk. So first of all, the idea of using and really signifying the Batmobile as he says in the monologue as a warning, right? You have the helicopter going across and shining a light on people. They look up like, oh shit, it's a fucking helicopter. It could be a police helicopter. And then the helicopter just moves and they see the fucking bat signal, and that's where the real fear comes in. And that shot of like the drop head staring at the bat signal, and it's like a close-up shot and the rain's coming down, is like, it's beautiful. And that also kind of introduces something that I want to talk about maybe a little later, towards the other end of this, but the use of dirtying up the frame, dirtying up the camera, and the way they did that with the cinematography, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, and then of course you have, again, as stated in the monologue, Batman is the shadows, and you have all the criminals looking at the shadows, and neither do the criminals know, nor do you know the first time you see that scene if Batman's going to be in those shadows. You don't know when he's going to emerge, right? And then of course he finally does. I love that he also comes in with the foreboding sound of his steps first, and it's also kind of reflective that when Batman does come out, he comes out to the one group of criminals who don't seem scared of him. You know what I mean? Like his tactic of using the shadows as a fear tactic and tool against the criminals works every time, because he says he can't be everywhere. So he isn't everywhere. He is where he needs to be, which is the one place where the criminals aren't scared of him and are going to commit a crime. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I agree with that, Nabil, and I like that. But also, alternatively, something that I took away from his choice of where he ends up being, not to counter what you're saying, because I like that, but just my initial perspective, and I think it might also still be intentional, I don't know. But like the fact that you see like these people like burning Gotham Bank, this guy is like doing armed robbery. Obviously, I think a large part of it is Batman isn't aware that all these things are happening, but I think it's interesting that juxtaposed with that, he's going after this group of guys whose whole shtick is like they're gonna punch someone for a viral video, I think it's interesting because it's like, to me, I kind of took it as like his priorities are really not necessarily straight. It seems like he's going after more of like an engaging fight.
Right.
He's going after these like people that are more similar to what he wants to like, relive and have power over because of his parents and stuff like that. Just like, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, Octavio.
One thing I do want to say though is that the bank part where they're spray painting and burning it down, that's a bank, and that's like the big rich people, and that's just them wanting to steal money or deface the place that's like, fucking them over with loans or whatever. The person who's stealing at the register, they're, usually armed robberies like that. Only if they go wrong, they usually shoot. That's what cops usually saying, whatever. Because the guy stealing just wants the money. He doesn't want a case on him with murder. But the people that are beating up the guy are actually going to hurt the person. They're specifically going to hurt someone, It's not just them going after money or something. I think that's kind of what I got from it. Like, he's trying to protect the citizens of Gotham versus, like, the resources of Gotham kind of thing,
It's a cool way of
That's
looking
fair.
at it.
Which
mean-
definitely shows to more of like the vigilante, like good-hearted side of him versus like, you know, the more corrupt state of like this state being like the group, like of like we'll say like the corrupt, you know, upper people in the police office or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like representing you know the resources and like the like what people want saved.
Yeah, I actually I like that you guys said that, because I feel like a major criticism that I see of this movie is that it doesn't fully deliver on the whole kind of classist clash, or however you want to put that theme of the movie, the major apparatus that the Riddler acts on, which is that the whole city is corrupt and that no one cares about people below. And I feel like if you look at it closely, like you guys just did, it is prevalent, sorry, I should say, and there throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's cool that you guys picked up on those details.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's more subtle, as in Batman, instead of directly saying, I
Yeah.
protect people who are poor, he just actually fucking does it, and people might just not, you know, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you didn't say it, so it's not in the fucking movie. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a good point. Like, I feel like never mind. I shouldn't put it that way, but like, I feel like there are other Batman movies where it definitely would have been more like that, where he literally says it out loud.
Yeah.
I definitely think like the bank scene is kind of there to like lay the groundwork for like the, you know, corruption, like I don't know what everything you guys just said. I think it like is definitely there to set up other themes and plot directions throughout the movie. But also I kind of and it could function as both. On the topic of like the classism message throughout the movie, I'm not gonna criticize the movie for that. I don't think it like fails to deliver on something or like tries to claim it's delivering a message that it doesn't. I think it does that effectively in different ways, which we can talk about throughout. But I feel like those scenes also were just like very good like world building scenes.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like I don't know. I think like the juxtaposition of like this like corner store and like that whole area of the city compared to like the bank and you know, obviously like the drops thing, but like I think more so than like pointing out the classist message, the bank scene kind of is there to like set up the fact that people are dissatisfied, which is, you know, brought back up well, I think, throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't want to jump ahead, but you know, like you see people that are obviously in support or interested in the Riddler's message.
Rifles are good. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
no.
Separately, not to just keep going, but I wanted to say my initial point about it feeling like Batman's priorities are out of check. Maybe I'm pulling something that is present in the movie into a poor example because I'm viewing the whole thing as you know, through this one lens. But I do feel like at the beginning of this movie, Batman is not there to protect the average person. Like based on that guy's reaction, I think Batman and also just him calling himself Vengeance and everyone knowing him as that, I think is another important detail there. It's not just like something he says for that scene or feels like. Everyone refers to him and knows him as that, not Batman.
He's clearly repeating it to every criminal he fucking beats up.
Yeah. So I think like he is protecting people and like I don't know though. I think there's like
it's like cathartic release, like therapy for himself, right?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more misdirected.
Yeah, like it overlaps.
It could be that he's going more after organized crime rather than individual acts of crime, because that was the group of people with like the Joker face paint was kind of like an organized group, as is like Falcone and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean it depends how you look at it, but like either way, as we learn as through the point of the movie and what's said, it doesn't work. Right? Crime has gone up. He literally says crime has gone up in the 2 years. And but I mean to go back to that cathartic release thing, like he literally rewatches every morning what has happened in the night. And like yeah, sure, some of that is for detective work and it kind of evolves into that specifically with the Riddler case. but like that's kind of like seems kind of unhealthy, you know, like forcing yourself to rewatch you fucking beating up criminals, like, and it kind of I feel like kind of ties into what Darian's saying about him having that misdirection towards his purpose. And like you said, just to wrap up the intro scene, the last thing I want to say is like it definitely also corresponds with setting up the city. I mean, this is a Gotham that I feel like we haven't really seen before. I'd say the closest, most focused view of Gotham we've gotten is in the Tim Burton Batman movies, where it's kind of like it's very specific, right? It's like a noir, fantastical, near future dystopia, right? And this is like the modern version of that in some ways, I feel like, where things are stacked up on top of each other to the point where it seems like people can't breathe. Mr. Nashton, you have something to say?
Casey?
What have you done to Casey?
Riddle me this. What was that?
Do you actually have a riddle, or
If you are justice, please do not lie. What's the price to play for? Fuck. Alright.
The
All right,
duct tape
so-
noises.
all right? Well, we were just talking about we were finishing up talking about the intro. We talked about a lot of different things. I was just talking about the portrayal of Gotham in the movie and how the intro kind of sets that up. You know, the layer of grime that's kind of shown across the city. It's very dirty. It's very bleak. I feel like the most bleak it's ever been. And I feel like in the Nolan movies, which were great, and I feel like there's a little bit of a thing going on right now where it's like people realizing that maybe they didn't like the Nolan movies as much as they did as Batman movies. And you know, I love those movies a lot growing up, especially. But I do feel like it is a pretty valid piece of criticism that Nolan's Gotham really just turned into a modern city across his 3 movies. Like in Batman Begins, I feel like it looks really cool. I don't know how many people have seen Batman Begins recently or remember, but like it looks like you literally can't breathe walking down the street in Batman Begins, and it totally ties into the whole thing of Scarecrow as a villain in that movie. And for some reason, it seems like in The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, it just turned into like, oh yeah, we're in Chicago, we're in Pittsburgh, you know, like,
Yeah.
which worked for it, I guess you could argue, but
I
You're
gotta
like, we're in a
say,
football stadium.
looking at some of the
Batman
scenes
movie.
from specifically The Dark Knight Rises, like daytime shots of the city, I am just gonna be very blunt. I think like this movie makes the setting of The Dark Knight Rises, and to a lesser degree The Dark Knight, look like shit in terms of like Gotham and
yeah.
being like an interesting world, you know? I don't know.
Well, it's like when you portray Gotham in Batman movies or media, you have to portray it as its own character, you know?
Something I do want to say about this, like 2022, the Batman, is that it really, like you said, it does a really good job of showing the atmosphere of Gotham and how like shitty it kind of is. Like personally, haven't been to like I go to Argentina a lot, and there's like lots of corruption in the government. You can pay off cops. There's drugs everywhere. The pollution's fucked. Like the streets are dirty. Like it kind of felt like kind of like that, because at night, like where I'm from in Argentina, like some in certain areas you're like not supposed to go at night, and it's like very dangerous. And like they like portrayed that atmosphere very well in the movie, I think.
That's an interesting comparison. It's like, and this is something that I feel like is definitely used in the comics, where it's like, basically it's a third world country in the middle of America. You know what I mean? And that's a really interesting thing. Like, the rest of the fucking country, the nation, has just like forgotten about it, and it's a shithole. Hence why it's based in New Jersey in the comics.
That's fun.
That's a got him. That's a
There
got him.
goes all the New
Fucking got
Jersey
him.
listeners, bro. Fuck.
Good. I don't want.
My mom.
I feel like I can say that I lived in New Jersey when
We
I was
don't
a
need
kid,
those
so-
drop heads listening.
I also want to
Yeah.
say though, I think outside of the city just feeling disgusting, I think there's like another element to it, like that is completely done better, and not even, in my opinion, as present in like Batman Begins from what I remember, because I know what you're talking about, where the city feels like fucked up more so in Batman Begins to
Yeah.
a good degree, and it feels atmospheric. I think this movie though, like, not to fucking say that the word Gotham means Gotham has to be gothic, but like I feel like that element is so present in this movie. Obviously, a lot of the architecture, primarily like in the Wayne Tower and Manor, unless it's only Wayne Tower in this movie, I'm not actually positive. I don't know if his parents' bedroom is in the tower. I think it is actually. Regardless, the architecture in all of those interior scenes, super gothic. I think like the fact that there's a bunch of people celebrating Halloween in the equivalent of like Times Square,
Yeah.
really good thing that feels like kind of like just unreal. It brings like an unreal element to the world that's still like believable and makes sense. Things like that. Also like the interior of like the mayor's house also gives that vibe, like the lamps and stuff like that. And also just like the club, the Iceberg Lounge
True.
inside also gives off that vibe.
I've got
Even the
something to
highway
say.
during the chase scene. Sorry.
Sorry, I just had something to say about the like Wayne Tower versus Wayne Manor thing.
Mhm.
I was watching a video that was talking about the prequel book that came out right before the movie came out, and it basically clarified some things about like with so the Wayne family when Bruce's dad was running for mayor, they decided to move into Wayne Tower, and they donated Wayne Manor to the
orphanage.
Right.
Okay.
Which like it's kind of like they talk about it in the movie, but I think I was a little, at
That's
least
really
on first
interesting,
watch, was
yeah.
confused upon that because
Yeah, I feel like they made it kind of sound like it was just a Wayne-owned
Yeah.
property.
Yes, exactly.
The manor, yeah.
And
That
it
makes more
adds
sense.
it adds to the like the Riddler
The
Bruce
duality.
Wayne thing
Yeah.
because it literally was like, oh, Bruce Wayne is an orphan living in this fancy tower now, and I'm living in his fucking like abandoned, fucked
Literal
up.
shadow
Yeah, literally, yeah,
and metaphorical shadow.
yeah, and
Pretty insane, yeah.
yeah, really cool. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's... Yeah, I didn't really fully realize that. So that's cool to
I
hear.
can talk more about some of the prequel shit. It's interesting, but it is off topic. But Bruce Wayne like was like big into like drag racing, like street racing cars, and that's why he built the Batmobile. In that like fashion. It fucking the Riddler was a DoorDash delivery driver on a bike and got hit by someone who like Bruce Wayne was like street racing with.
That's absurd. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's no. I mean, it's cool to hear. So
Batman equals Paul Walker from Fast and Furious, pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the Riddler is like the Rock.
Rock.
Paul
No,
Walker is
no, the Riddler is
dead.
all about family, dude.
It's
So
pretty funny when I watched the movie with Juan, who has seen, I think, all of the Fast and Furious movies, for better or worse.
I have.
He pointed out that I don't know how accurate this is. Maybe it was a joke that I didn't read as well. But he's saying that the scene where Batman and Catwoman drive away at the end was very Fast and Furious
Yeah,
vibes.
Paul Walker and the bald guy that's in the fucking movies. Yeah, when they like.
Someone should do an edit of that.
I'm sure someone will make it.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, no. So we talked about the intro. I think we can pretty much dive into Batman himself, Robert Pattinson's portrayal, because I feel like that's necessary to continue talking about the movie. I'm gonna say it before anyone else does. This guy's eyes. How does he do it? How do you emote so much and tell so much in a performance with just your eyes? It's absurd. It throws away any argument. People are like, "Oh man, why didn't they make Batman with the white eyes?" Like, I don't want to see white eyes. Like, I just want to see this guy's eyes now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
anyway,
also,
yeah.
I think it's important to just, like, obviously, if you've seen it, this is clear. And I maybe to just clarify what you're pointing out, Robert Pattinson's acting, specifically with his eyeballs, because the lids are completely blacked out and the rest of the surrounding area is obscured by a non-moving cowl. It is literally, like, the degree to which his eyes are open and the direction of them.
Yeah.
I would say sometimes maybe, like, it looks like his eyes quiver, but it's primarily, like, directional eye movement expression
Yes.
in, like, the interrogation scene, or, like, when they find the body, or, like, just, I don't know, it's actually crazy, because
So-
you don't even get any, like, wrinkling around his eyes to
Yeah.
show what's going on.
Acting expert Casey Peter person here. They like something they talk about a lot in acting is that like 80% of acting is your eyes, but what they actually mean is it's your eyebrows. So if you don't have eyebrows, it's very difficult. So seeing him being able to pull that off is very cool. Because it's one thing to like, you know, not have like 90% of your face visible, but even more so, like you're saying, with like showing like emotion just through like eye movement,
I
and
wish we
barely
could, like,
any
show a
facial like
clip.
mouth expressions. Yeah,
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, the scene where they find the dead body, we'll just leave it at that. It doesn't matter what the context is. He's looking away. You see his eyes shift, like, down towards where Catwoman is looking, right? His mouth doesn't move at all, even though it's in the shot. And you can just see his reaction. You can see, like, this. I don't understand. I can't put my finger on what he's doing with his eyes besides moving them in the direction. But after that, he does something with his eyes. And it's very clear that he is, like, shocked, but it's not just like his eyes widen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That example, I think, is, like, the strongest alongside the interrogation one, because in that one, his mouth doesn't move either, even though it's in the shot.
Something I do want to say that happens a lot with masked heroes or whatever villains is that it seems like using the eyes and the face and whatever, they try to not really use like the bottom half of the face, but like this part of it, and like you can see it in other kinds of genres, like in the Addams Family, where like they'll have like, you know, like the light like beam across like their eyes, and like for the Deadpool movie they had to like actually animate like the like this top half of the mask to like kind of get more like of that reaction so you could understand what Deadpool was feeling, or you know,
That's why in
whatever.
the third act
apart
of every
from the
Spider-Man
dialogue.
movie they have to rip off his mask because they
Yeah.
want to show emotion, and you can't because the eyes are still.
Exactly.
Or I mean, you can, but only to a certain degree.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I mean, he looks like he really actually, like, I thought this during the movie multiple times, just looks like a fucking animal with the eyes just piercing out. It's just crazy how he does that.
Yeah.
Also, I might
yeah.
just be ripping this completely from Matt Reeves, something he said in an interview, or actually, it also might be Paul Dano or Robert It's one of the three. I actually now can confirm that I'm ripping this from a video interview. I don't remember which one. It doesn't really matter who said it, but they were pointing out the fact that uh, the contouring of the cowl and the use of light and the way that like there was a specific intent behind different scenes, which, not to take away from what we just said about his ability to act, I just remembered this because I actually watched it before my second, third, and fourth viewing. They were talking basically about like Matt Reeves intentionally like positioning the camera and the lighting to accent different contours of the cowl, and it was designed in a specific way to be able to do that, so that like in certain positions it looks like very menacing, but in other positions it looks more expressive and like like emotional, vulnerable, I guess, rather than just like hard and dark and scary.
Yeah.
So that's also a cool way that obviously it has nothing to do with Robert Pattinson's performance in that case, but I think it adds to what he's doing with his eyes. There's like an interplay between those two things, which is cool.
Yeah, I think there's so much interesting technical involved, like in this movie, everything from lighting to sound, um, the score, everything, like the way it's shot. It's very specific and has like such a strong intention behind it, and it's just executed perfectly. That I think it's like that's to me is what seems like elevates it to another level of just being like another superhero movie. Like it's just like super talented filmmaking in a lot of ways, which like obviously there's it's tough because there's so many different styles and people have their own tastes, but I think like undeniably like the technical achievements of like what they do with sound and light in the movie especially is like so fucking good.
Yeah. And there'll be multiple instances I feel like where we're going to talk about that sound. Yeah. So I think all in all, well, I guess the other half of this conversation specifically, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, and I think we've all agreed in our own discussion that this is best Bruce Wayne performance. I'll say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I feel like there are people out there who kind of shit on it as another criticism I see of the movie, the next major one probably. And it's like I feel like you just don't understand the movie if you're criticizing him for being a fucking recluse,
Mm-hmm.
It's the entire point, and we see him grow, and that's the entire theme of the movie is that he's going about things in the wrong way, and not only is it suspicious of him to be acting that way, I'm sure, from a practical standpoint, but also just shows his lack of his embrace of being only the Batman and not being Bruce Wayne, and how he has to learn that whether he likes it or not, he has to. I'm sure we'll see in the next movie, so to speak, create that duality that we know. Like it makes sense that there's no Playboy Bruce Wayne yet.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone else wants to talk about that.
Yeah,
I think Bruce Wayne doesn't even exist in this movie. Not to counter what you're saying, because I think it is my favorite portrayal of Bruce Wayne, and it's like most realistic and logical, given the point at which he is as a character. But we can talk about that after. I'll let Casey say what they were going to say.
I was just gonna say that I think an interesting thing I heard. I'm not gonna name drop this person on the Filmatic podcast, but someone I was talking to was like, I wish there was more Bruce Wayne in this. I liked how they portrayed Bruce Wayne, and I wish there was more of him. And I think that's like interesting at first because I'm like, yeah, in some ways I do wish too that like we got to see more of that. But it goes against like what you were talking about with the theme of the movie. Like, there's a reason why he's not like 80% of the movie he's Batman, and it's because that's what his life is like. Yeah.
I mean,
It's interesting because I also wish there was more Bruce Wayne, but also I think it's like good where it's at, and
the
agree
only
fully with what you just said.
3 times we see Bruce Wayne as Bruce Wayne, or sorry, the only 3 times we see him out of the costume are for his own specific purposes, as using himself as a human as a tool, right? One of them being him just coming home and taking off the costume, which I feel like is just practical. The second one being when he goes to the funeral, when he literally tells Alfred that he has to go as Bruce Wayne. When Alfred's like, "Oh, you're coming back, huh?" And he's like, "No, I got to go to this funeral because Riddler might strike again." And then number 3, when he goes to Carmine Falcone to find out the truth about his family, which I guess is the most personal, quote unquote, he can get. And the only reason he doesn't go as Batman is because it would be pretty fucking obvious if Batman showed up and was asking about it.
I
what
also
I mean?
want to say I think it's really interesting because when he goes to the funeral, it almost like he's still not really Bruce Wayne.
He doesn't know how to act. He's a fucking social
Like the
fucking
way he
freak.
approaches Falcone and Penguin and the girl that's with them when he thinks that it's Selena is like it seems like the way that is shot and portrayed is like he approaches very quickly. You hear nothing, you don't really see that much, and then just suddenly it's like snap back. They're stopping him. I feel like it was like he was just like going to go into Batman mode and just confront or like grab somebody or something because he must have been approaching so aggressively that they had to, they were afraid of him despite the way he's dressed and who he is. I think that's pretty insane.
And even when he talks to them in that moment, sorry, I just want to say, even when he talks to them in that moment, he's still like talking like he would as Batman. I feel like he's just making like he made like a smart remark or something, right?
He's kind of interrogative, like
he's like, it means my father took the Hippocratic Oath. Just like being an asshole. And I like seeing those moments of Bruce being an asshole in this movie.
Even after that, now that I think about it, when you see him observing these people, the guy that's like talking about all the rich people, the guy that tries to sneak past the police line, even when he's talking to the mayor, he just seems completely like paranoid and disconnected from all of those interactions because he's so focused on the aspects that are relevant to his life as Batman.
And I feel like you, as the audience, are also disconnected. Putting you in his shoes.
I think the only point that he's actually like there as Bruce Wayne is when he's looking at the kid and seeing himself, which is also interesting because like he clearly like it's juxtaposed with the Bella Real, right? He doesn't even care about paying respects to the mayor. Like he goes up and he just looks at the kid.
Well, because he was corrupt. Like he also shows that throughout the movie.
I really
he doesn't
talk
care.
About that aspect.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit about these people. Like he's brutal. Like when Catwoman is talking about her friend dying, he's like, well, your friend clearly made the wrong choices and stuff, and like how did it feel to compromise yourself? Like he's making
Do I have permission to go into this for a second since you're bringing it up?
Yeah, I might as well. Yeah,
I'm not going to spend too long on it. I just want to say, I think that part of the movie is actually insane. That scene that you're talking about, the scene with Commissioner Gordon not Commissioner, with Jim Gordon after the commissioner is murdered and they're in the morgue, where he's like, you made it sound like he had it coming, and then Batman's like, he was a cop, he crossed the line. I think that is like it's so emblematic of so many things about the character that we can talk more about it in a minute, but I just want to say like that the Catwoman scene and his attitude overall towards these people and the way that he has to realize his father is like potentially equally that corrupt, and I think like it might not be directly explicated in dialogue or shown, but it's like I think that is like obviously maybe clearly what like leads to this change, where after that point he's much more concerned outwardly. I think he would.
He has humanity. He gains humanity.
Yeah, like he's very adamantly against letting Selena kill Kenzie. I think he still would have tried to stop that beforehand, but obviously he delivers this whole thing where it's like, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Octavio, you were gonna say something.
Yeah,
before.
I want to go back to the funeral scene. what you guys were saying was that, like, oh, like Bruce Wayne's acting like Batman or whatever, like during the movie. What I got from that scene was that there's no clear line between Batman and Bruce Wayne. It's all in this. It's the same person. It's the same character, except one's wearing a mask to hide the fact that he's Bruce Wayne, and he has armor on because he's fighting people. He just went to the funeral to investigate because he knows that whoever he's dealing with is sick in the head, so he's probably going to want to do something at the funeral, you know? I think he just went there to try and get more information. And if if Catwoman was there with Falcone, which, he thought she was, then he could be like, what the fuck are you doing with him? You lied to me or something, or at least just look her in the face and make sure it's her, and enough is said just by looking at each other, like making eye contact and seeing her like holding arms with Falcone.
Yeah, and just to touch on that little part in the movie with those characters a little bit. So Catwoman, if you notice, like when he sees Catwoman, you and Bruce think that's her getting out of the car, and we now can see from set photos that they actually did use Zoe Kravitz in that scene when she's getting out of the car and her back is turned to the camera.
That's crazy.
So it's like it's literally just tricking you into being like, oh, that's obviously her, which I feel like is such a great touch to the movie.
And they focus on the boots again, the black boots.
The boots, yeah. I mean, that's such a great detail. The other thing, Batman writers everywhere in any medium, please decide how you want to pronounce Falcone or Falcone, because it's getting really, it's just getting out of hand, guys.
Is
it Falcone? Is it Falcone? Please.
It's Italian. It's up for interpretation.
Yeah. Anyway.
Falcone.
E gnocchi, ravioli. It's like ravioli or ravioli. like
Yeah.
I think what Octavio said though, like, brings it back to what I was saying, where it's like, what I meant is, like, Bruce Wayne doesn't exist, is like there's no like duality that everyone like classically associates with Batman, where it's like, oh, he's super violent as Batman, and as Bruce Wayne he's like this fucking playboy, like the classic assumption of what you're gonna see is not present, because like Bruce Wayne doesn't exist / they are the same character at this point, and I think it's basically just like, obviously it's so explicit, but the Riddler is completely right when he's speaking to Batman at the end, and he's like, you're more like, we know the real you is you when you're wearing the mask. I think that's like very on the nose, but exactly what they're trying to do the whole movie. So anyone that criticizes that is, I think, an idiot, if I can be honest.
Yeah.
Also, just on the topic, the way that he as Bruce Wayne, the way he acts so pointed, so needle nose, if you will. Why is Batman so needle nose as Bruce Wayne? Anyways, like towards Alfred, like the whole like, you're not my father, or like, oh, where did you get the Wayne cufflinks from? Like those things. The way he just goes to Alfred, and the first thing he says once he finds out that he's stable and going to live in the hospital is just
lie
like,
to me,
fuck
Alfred.
you're like, I think all of those things, very similar to what you brought up about him telling Catwoman, like, oh, your friend should have known the risk, or like him, oh, it just means my dad, like, signed the Hippocratic Oath or whatever. Like, I all of those things I think are like, they give off of like the thing you were saying, where it's like, it feels like he's talking like Batman, but I think it's also just like, he's so clearly not even like a fully formed, moved on person. Like he's just like a identityless kid who's like, going around trying to like seek control over something that made him powerless.
I mean, that's exactly what Matt Reeves has said also about the character, is that he's a fucking 10-year-old mentally still. You know what I mean? He's just an overgrown 10-year-old. Yeah.
Or as what they said in Arkham Origins, what we were watching last night, he's a
There you
trust
go.
fund kid that's weighing over his head with
Yeah,
lots of
Arkham
anger.
Origins.
Like,
It's actually Arkham Origins is another Batman story that takes place in year 1 or 2, where he also, I feel like, talks like that, and it's more like what I said before. I'm like, oh yeah, he's talking like Batman. He's talking like vengeance more so. You know what I mean? He's not, because he's not Batman yet. He's not Batman until the end of the movie, for being honest.
I honestly,
So, yeah, I
not to
just
like
wanted to
jump
say
ahead
that.
to this, but I want to say I don't even think he's Batman by the end of the movie. I think it's like he realizes how he could
Become
become
Batman.
Batman. Yeah, but he's like barely there if he is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Batman Begins. Yeah, I feel like we touched on all the main things for Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne for now.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Important question. Do we do a Batman ranking?
Ooh.
Do we do a quick Batman ranking?
I mean, I'm putting him at number 1. That's my quick.
I'm putting him at number 1. I'm putting him at number 1.
Yeah. I feel like I'd probably have to at this point.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. The things that I like about that, I feel like I'm kind of harsh and much less connected emotionally to the Dark Knight trilogy. But I think Christian Bale's Batman, even as Bruce Wayne, are not the like strong points of that trilogy for me. I
Yeah.
don't think it's like unwatchable him as Batman or anything, but like personally, not comparable. I think Robert Pattinson is like one of the strongest points of this movie, alongside a lot of other ones.
Can we
which
do,
is
like,
why I
a-
like it more?
Each person, like, quick ranking of all of them, if you're aware of all of them.
I'm not
whichever
familiar
ones,
enough with
whichever
all of
ones
them.
you're aware of or have seen.
I'll start. Our Battinson, fucking Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Batfleck. There we go.
Damn. I guess, wait, you put George Clooney above Batfleck?
Fuck yeah, I did. Those movies are fun and at least enjoyable to watch.
Dude, that's cap. I feel like
What?
those movies
You don't
are
think they're
shitty as
fun and
fuck.
enjoyable to watch?
I think Batman Forever
Wow,
is enjoyable
Nabil.
to watch. I don't think
We
Batman...
need to do a Batman Forever, Batman and Robin fucking podcast. I
Batman
would
and
love
Robin
to.
is shit. Come on.
Nabil, if you want to
Come
do a
on.
4-hour fucking Batman rewatch every movie, I'll
be
do
glad
it.
to. I'll be glad
I'll
to.
do it because
I'm down.
I need to sell the people on Batman Forever is a good movie. Batman and Robin is bad.
Batman Forever is a good movie. Batman and Robin is bad.
Batman and Robin is a shit movie, but it is entertaining because of how bad
It's
it is.
entertaining. Okay, if you put it that way, sure.
Yes.
But I don't think it's better than fucking Ben Affleck's Batman because he has some cool scenes. I don't know.
Oh, he uses a gun and
The scene where he's like saving the
The warehouse scene.
yeah, the warehouse scene, or when like the
The
cop
warehouse
shows
scene is
like
better
fucking
than
like
all of... I'd rather watch the warehouse scene over and over again than watch Batman and Robin.
I gotta agree with Casey. I think I'd much rather watch George Clooney Batman than boring ass Ben Affleck Batman.
But that's the thing. You're saying it because it's shitty and it's funny to say.
No.
To see.
No, I genuinely think it's a better performance all around. Like, it's
The
better
way
to
you
be
phrase
bad
that.
than boring, honestly.
I
I'd rather watch a horrible
that's-
performance than just
I
one
normally
that is
agree
so
with that.
bland and lifeless that there's just
That-
nothing like to get out
That's
of
a
it.
really
that's
good way
like
to
my-
put it because I think like you can do a Batman that is campy.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
fucking-
definitely.
But it's not campy.
Think
it's just
about-
bad.
It is
Adam
campy.
West
It's
is
campy
way
as hell.
Adam West is like 20 times better than
Dude,
George
Batman
Clooney
and Robin
because he actually
is-
does the campy thing right.
Extremely campy.
Mm.
That's like it's just like a camp
It's
superhero
not-
movie.
It's literally not. It's not even. It's okay. I'd love to talk more
Is it
about that.
Well, we'll do it.
intentionally? I
That's
think
what I'm
that's
saying.
what
I
we're
don't
No,
trying
think
it
to
it's
is.
get
It
at.
is. Joel Schumacher is a fucking camp director.
Yeah. What about Lost Boys, bro?
I'm just talking about Batman and Robin. Man.
The guy makes
Look,
camp movies. I think he
I'm
definitely.
saying the
But was
script.
I
Batman
agree.
forever?
Casey and I are the smart ones here.
Yeah, we've heard the script for Batman and Robin indicates that it's not intentionally campy and it's bad writing. That's where I'm at.
Fair,
Yeah,
the writing
that's
is
all I'm
pretty terrible.
It's still hilarious though. There's like
Yeah,
gorillas
sure,
in
it's
it, dude,
hilarious.
and like
Yeah, I agree. It's hilarious, but not
Okay, can
any-
I bring up another thing relevant to this conversation that I want to say? I think that, like, obviously, if we're ranking actors' performance of Batman, I can understand more where you guys are coming from. But when I think about, like, we're ranking everyone's Batman, a large part of it is the performance, but also just, like, the way the character is written. You know what I mean?
Fair.
dude, name me one Ben Affleck Batman line, really.
That's
How well
true.
written is he?
Tell me, do you bleed?
Well, no,
Fuck
I
you.
don't.
It
I'm not, like,
sucks. It
I'm not
sucks
saying, like,
because he has the fucking voice filter on.
this is what
I
I'm saying.
fucking hate it, dude. Give
I'm
me
not
a
talking
fucking
about.
normal fucking voice. Why
I'm
does
not
he have a
talking
fucking...
about, like, lines written for the character said by the actor. I just mean, like, the fucking portrayal that has nothing to do with Ben Affleck's Batman, I think is, like, pretty appealing, where he's just, like,
The demeanor.
branding people
Like the
and,
first
like,
scene,
super
the first
violent.
scene you
like
see
that
in Batman v
aspect.
Superman, where he's in that fucking underground fucking basement where they're trafficking the girls, and you see
Yeah.
him, he's fucking
That's
on the
insane.
wall. Like, come on.
That was cool as fuck, actually.
I
I
will
don't
say,
even
the
remember
things that
that.
I like about Ben Affleck's Batman are completely contained to Batman versus Superman. And also, I haven't seen the George Clooney movie, so I'm not trying to make an argument against Evan or Casey. I can't. I'm just saying, like, I think Ben Affleck's Batman is, like, interesting to watch, at least in that movie. Not because of Ben Affleck or, like, anything specifically that he does, or anything specifically that he says, or exceptional writing. I just think, like, the way it looks in those scenes that you brought up, the warehouse one, the trafficking one, and the fight with Superman,
I
is just, like,
literally-
pretty cool.
I literally think that the Lego Batman movie does a campy, funny Batman better than George Clooney does, than Batman and Robin.
I haven't seen it. I've seen him in the Lego
I
movie.
agree.
But listen, here's another hot take. All right, fucking Joel Schumacher's Gotham is better than fucking
Affleck.
Christopher Nolan's. Better than, I would say, the fucking DC Universe one.
Wait, you
Sorry,
cut out.
who's
You cut
Gotham?
out.
Yeah,
Casey.
it cut out.
What did you say?
The Joel Schumacher like version of Gotham City.
To be
It's
fair, I
better
don't remember
than-
it very well. It wasn't very
I
memorable
like
to me.
it.
Wasn't
It's
very
like kind of like
memorable.
wacky and like super 90s and like
I
Yeah,
just
What is
remember
it
spray
better
paint
than-
everywhere and like weird like hoodlums hanging in the alleys.
I couldn't speak on it. I feel like I don't remember it well enough, but
Fair.
Casey, what did you declare it was better than?
Oh, better than fucking, and it's for the same reasons, all right? Because interesting, even if it's like not like, you know, maybe it's not comic book accurate, maybe it's not like, but like interesting is better than just fucking bland and boring. And I think
all I'm
that
saying is,
yeah,
yeah,
I
so
wanna-
like better than fucking Christopher Nolan's Gotham. That's
I
what
was hoping
saying.
that you were gonna say that. I was hoping you were gonna
Yeah.
take the hot
I'll
take
say it.
route.
I'll say
and
it.
make that. I haven't seen the
I'm
movie.
bringing
so I
the
have no
hammer
idea.
down.
I think the Batman Begins one is
What did
better
you
than
do?
Joel
What did
than
you
what you're describing because it's actually like an environment that was created to portray the city as a character, like I was saying before.
Oh, I
you haven't
agree.
seen Batman Begins? Batman
Yeah.
Begins is awesome, by the way. I don't know,
Batman
people
Begins-
sleep on that movie.
It's yeah.
It's a better Batman movie in some ways. Beyond, if you're not counting the Batman Joker dynamic, it's probably better than the Dark Knight. I mean, I don't know. I've kind of felt that way recently, but
Interesting.
And Bill, I just not to like transition out of this. One thing I was
Probably
watching
good
some
idea.
scenes from Batman Begins after you mentioned it. I want to say, just on the topic of like not even Gotham as a city, but like the world universe setting of this movie compared to like Christopher Nolan. I feel like something like the way Scarecrow is portrayed, like when he,
Yeah.
okay, you know the scene where Scarecrow, is this actually, hold on, I might be using a non-example. The scene where Scarecrow uses the gas on Falcone, is that Batman Begins?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I know he's in the other.
He's in them. He has like cameos more or less. He's not actually like yeah.
So yeah, when he uses the gas on Falcone in that scene, I feel like it's a really weak portrayal because they just do like this camera shake effect and like distorted noise and like some effects on the mask. I feel like if they fucking did
Well, the whole
Scarecrow in a
point-
universe like this, it would be like completely insane.
Okay, first of all, I agree with you. I definitely think Scarecrow, made by the same people who made this movie, would be out of this world and better than that. But at the same time, the reason it's kind of muted in that first scene is because A, that's the first scene you see Scarecrow and as Scarecrow, and B, they cut away early. It's just to show that something is fucked. That something fucked is gonna happen. Like they're like, oh my god, like what am I seeing? And then it cuts away, and then you don't actually see the full thing until he uses it on Batman. It fucking sets him on fire and throws him down a building. Like, I don't know, it's awesome.
That was insane, yeah.
And also it's that same scene that I always think of when I think of what Nolan's Gotham should have stayed as, which is a fucking place where it looks like literally, I keep saying it, but it's like cramped. No one can breathe. Things are on top of each other. You know, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I definitely need to rewatch that movie. I specifically wasn't even bringing it up as a criticism of that movie though. I just wanted to say, I feel like just like the setting, like in a more broad sense of the term, or I guess the tone of this universe that the Batman is set in, like has an effect on the characters. You know what I mean? That strengthens the way they come off. Does that make sense?
No, I agree, Darian. I think it's like, just adds a lot more depth to the characters when they have like a setting that influences them. Because like when you look at like, I don't know, when you look at like other movies, other Batman movies, it's like, I don't know, why would Bruce Wayne, have any conflict? It wouldn't be possible for him to have a lot of like the turmoil and conflict, or like Catwoman to have the conflict she's having in a city like Gotham and like the Christopher Nolan trilogy, because like, I don't know, that like desperation doesn't feel like it's there in the same way.
Right,
like
because they try to do the same or similar message where Anne Hathaway's Catwoman is like, they're fucking rich people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like the gist of it. Like you're saying, like there's no depth to it. It's just like, Anne, you're rich, Bruce Wayne. And then she goes and for some reason helps Batman.
Yeah, and
don't even,
dude, that's why the fucking Dark Knight Rises pisses me off so much. I like the idea of like, the city like being turned upside down and like all of these different things, like, but like it just doesn't feel like why do I care about this? Why? And I don't know. I feel like we're talking about we should talk about the Batman. I don't know.
No, I mean I think it's I think it's
We're
fine.
just comparing.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that the newest iteration's the best one.
Oh no, I just mean
right now, so.
I just mean I feel like I personally I was like, I'm not trying to shit on those movies too much. I just
besides the Dark Knight Rises, I think it's okay to shit on the Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
No matter what, in any context.
How about we ask our viewers too? Can they comment? Can they do shit like that?
Can they comment?
They won't even comment for a real DVD for fucking
a real DVD.
A fucking DVD,
damn.
dude. You think they're gonna comment to be part of the conversation?
That's fair. Yeah. We'll cut that little DVD part.
They say
like,
don't
fuck
bite.
you guys.
They say don't bite the hand that feeds you, but they aren't giving me shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you, but motherfucker, I'm starving.
Yeah. We should mention, by the way, Connor had to tap out of the podcast. He had some urgent matters to attend to. So if you see his video...
Connor passed away from the throat
Wait,
cancer.
are they not going to see him falling asleep through the whole length of the episode?
I was thinking of editing
dying?
it, but
I think we should leave it in. I think it's funny.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I turned his camera off because I was like,
Turn it back
just
on.
thought it's
Leave it in there.
Can we
I
put
can't.
him? Can
You
we put him
can't.
on another Zencaster channel? Connor sleeping.
Our sleeping cast.
It'll be a little like
Sure.
filmatic behind the scenes. You get to watch a live stream.
a 3-hour video of Connor sleeping.
Yeah. That one gets more views than the actual podcast.
Probably would. Going back to the Batman, let's talk about the Riddler tier. The Riddler tier.
Here.
I think Paul Dano lived up to the hype. I think when we heard that he was going to become the Riddler, we were hyped because of his, specifically, I personally will say his There Will Be Blood performance was absurd.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's just great. I really, like, he just hit the mark perfectly, I feel like. I love that he's a product of Batman, sorry, the Waynes, that is, and the duality, as Casey had mentioned before. Does anyone want to talk more about the duality? Casey, I know you're a big themes person.
Yes. I'm trying to think of rhymes. Fuck. Alright. I do enjoy themes in this movie. It seems that they are taking the classic approach of... Alright, I'm done. I can't do it. Alright. Anyway, so, sorry, I'll stay in the...
For our audio listeners, Casey is in the
That's right.
dark.
I'm doing the Riddler glasses.
The Riddler
moment.
glasses from the intro.
So I think that with it's just definitely my favorite. I think part of the movie as a whole. I think that you can say so much about performances and the technical aspects and the overall vibe of the movie that adds to making it so great. But I think like as for like personal connection to the movie, which I think is something we've talked about, like I think all of us really appreciate with like these superhero movies is like what sets others apart is like that emotional connection that you just don't get in most big budget blockbuster superhero movies. Like I don't know, maybe
I mean, would you say
maybe some people do from like an Avengers Endgame or like some bullshit where like, oh, like my favorite character died, but like I don't know. I think like the ideas that are presented here are just like applicable to real life, and yeah, we can go into more into what they are, but that's just kind of my
I feel like
intro.
Yeah, to speak on your intro, like it kind of holds a candle to the thematic resonance of like a Spider-Man 2. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In terms of like having a writer-director who really can deliver that. So I think it's up there. I think for me personally, in terms of superhero movies, it's fucking up there, just because of that, because it can even play in that playground, so to speak. So yeah, the duality of Batman and the Riddler. Let's talk about it. Of course. Well, actually, okay. I mean, this kind of is part of it, but like going back to what was mentioned by I think Darian in the beginning, like I love that we learn that first of all, the children's choir that's part of the Riddler's theme is beautiful. That they use that piece Ave Maria in the theme and in the movie and how that ties together, and also that we learn later that the children's choir was singing at that function where Thomas Wayne announced renewal. The system that failed the Riddler, that failed the lower class of Gotham, and led to his creation. And it's also Thomas Wayne's failure that leads to the Batman, as we learn later. His mistake that he made of killing that. inadvertently killing the reporter, who is connected to Hush because his name is Edward Elliot, supposedly we could assume to be the father of Thomas Elliot. There's a lot of layers here. There's a lot of layers.
Tears.
A lot of tears here. And it just seems like every single thing with these two characters is connected in some way. And of course, the main thing being that they both choose to resolve their injustices, or however you want to put it, their problems, with vengeance. And it's through that lens that Bruce learns at the end of the movie that maybe vengeance isn't the right way to go about it. So, what do we think?
Well, I thought what I was getting from the movie, which is why at first I thought, can I bring the end scene where like he makes his friend unmark him? Can I reveal that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So when obviously it was the Joker that he was talking to, right?
Yes.
I thought at first that it was Two-Face because I felt that the whole movie was almost had like a Two-Face thing of it. Like it was two sides of the same coin, except one was really burnt and the other one wasn't as much. I thought it was just they were both trying to do the same thing, get rid of corruption and, clean the city. But one of them was doing it in a very violent and twisted way, whereas Batman was trying to be more, not killing anyone and kind of trying to protect people versus killing people.
But even then, he was still doing it in a twisted way that failed.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? When
doubled.
comparing it, like it's the better of two evils kind of thing. Comparing it, it wasn't as twisted. So
right. Well, one crosses the line that's set by society in that the Riddler is a criminal because he fucking killed people, whereas Batman isn't. But at the same time, they're both failing at what they do. And as I'm sure was sort of obvious in the interrogation scene, they're a mirror of each other. And they're both victims and products and failures of what started them, So
they're like they how can I explain this well? They exemplify the whole like class system. They're both of the very polar opposite classes, except one of them is like, but they're both doing the same thing,
I think an interesting aspect of it is specifically like cooperation with the police also. I think that obviously like Batman, when he chooses to like cooperate with police, is seen as like I think like in this, like as this is shown as the start of his career, people are still hesitant in the police force about like working with him, but like he's seen as a like heroic figure for doing that in a lot of ways. Even though like people are still like scared of him and different things, but like I guess it's just like I'm like because he's not technically breaking the like, as you said, like that mindset by society of like murdering people. He's not like fully pursued by police. Until
he's just a vigilante, so to speak.
Yeah. And that line between like vigilante and terrorist that they draw in the movie is very interesting, because like once he starts to like question the police and like question their involvement in it also, I think they start to like fight back a little more, and there's that great scene in the police department.
Man,
that's great. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie for sure.
Dude, Batman assaulting police officers,
classic.
It's great, awesome. Also another thing that's in Arkham Origins. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know. I just like that they I don't know. I don't think the movie's like anti-cop. I don't expect that But I do think that it makes some like interesting points about like how like not there's corruption there. Not everything they're doing is completely like the right way to go about things
Yeah.
either, because since they determine like the legal side of that, that's connected to like the social understanding, like what's acceptable when like dealing with justice and crime. Um, I think they show that like there's a gray area there also.
Yeah.
I will say, I think the movie might be more subtly anti-cop than it comes off as from the first viewing. I don't know, maybe I'm just like I really did not think that that was present until the third time I watched it, but I don't know. I think that not I don't want to go too deep into this or come off as like conspiratorial about it. I'm just putting it on the table. I want to see what you guys think. The the red and the blue, okay.
Hmm.
The blatant tension between the cops and Batman. Specifically, I think that one line where Batman's like, he was a cop, pause, he
Yeah.
crossed the line. Um, Third of all, the ending scene where the cop car is like center framed in the red and blue lighting in the flooded area, and then it collapses down and the lights go out, and then Batman relights with only red. Thought that was really interesting. The shot or the bomb collar that the Riddler uses, um, with the red and blue flashing light. Thought that was kind of interesting, but also on a thematic overarching level, fear and like monopolizing violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two things that the cops tend to do as a way to try to, deal with crime that are obviously ineffective. I think like maybe not trying to make it blatant in the script or through Matt Reeves or something. There might have intentionally been criticism of police within the movie. But obviously not to the point that they're going to sacrifice the characters because Batman is still like, you're a good cop, which is a very anti cop hate thing to put in the movie, right? Like,
Mhm.
and they
But it still
clearly display
shows
that not all the cops are bad.
It still, even at that level, it still displays that bad cops exist, which is something you'll never fucking hear in a Marvel movie. I feel like,
That's
right?
facts.
Like in
Yeah,
a Marvel movie, it's like
Marvel goes straight to
government.
pro military.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe a little bit in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I feel like that
oh yeah,
show
yeah,
actually
that's true.
kind of.
Yeah, but that's a Disney Plus show. No one's gonna watch that, so it's okay if they throw that in there, right? Like,
And they almost didn't.
Yeah,
Kevin Feige didn't want it.
there you go. So
That's a good point.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned the flare. Not to go switch topics all the way to the end already, but in the beginning of the movie, Batman says, "I am the shadows." At the end of the movie, when it's different, he's the only light.
And it's
Very good.
daytime. He's helping people during the daytime too. It's like
Well,
the
yeah,
sun's
after that,
rising,
yeah.
and yeah.
No, yeah, I think the ending in that sense is like perfect. When he first lights the flare and they do that top down shot of him leading
Oh, yeah.
people through the darkness, just genuinely on my first watch, immediately the first word that came to my mind, juxtaposed with that of like vengeance or fear,
Fear.
was hope. And then
Yeah.
obviously he uses the word hope himself later on in that sequence. But I feel like it's just like a perfect visual representation. Kind of has like Statue of Liberty vibes. Which
I think that's the best shot of the movie, in my opinion.
I
Well-
agree. That one and the one where he falls into the water with the flashing red and blue lights from the same perspective. Those are both like so beautiful.
Well,
What
even
I-
at the end. Sorry, go ahead.
What I thought, well, after having watched the movie and having pieced all the things together of the last scene, like from the flare on, I think when like what I felt or thought was that since it was a red light and like kind of Batman and all the posters have him in a red light, Batman's fear, blah blah blah. That's just whole shtick throughout the fucking movie. I think at that point he learned that he could use the exact same tactics, fear, and all that stuff, but just in a different way. That's kind of what I got from it, because no longer was he trying to keep himself in the darkness and be the shadows, but he could be the shadows and be that kind of scary guy, but only for certain people, not for everyone. Because even cops in the movie are kind of hesitant. They're like, yo, what the fuck sometimes, you know? They're like uncomfortable around him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah. I mean, the end of the movie, what I was going to say,
Mhm.
where he's like actually like helping people and everything, and that something in the way comes back in, but now it has those strings, those building strings, where it's like very like hopeful. I thought it was like one of the best Batman moments in film. Like, and that's something we don't normally see, is Batman like helping people too. You know.
Yeah.
I
So-
think obviously the juxtaposition of like that guy at the subway being like, please don't hurt me, after Batman quote unquote helps him, and the woman at the end where he like keeps his arm on her as she's lifted away.
She doesn't want to let go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a good juxtaposition, but also the dialogue, or the monologue, I guess, the narration that Batman gives at that scene, the ending one, brings me back to something I said earlier, where I think it's like he's only just starting to realize, like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's even there yet. It's like,
He's
one, I
finally on the
think,
track.
yeah. I think like one, physically, like this is probably like one of the first things that he's doing is like rescuing people as the National Guard arrives, probably the next day, right? So like obviously he is only starting, but also like I think just the way, I mean, obviously they use that line that is in the Riddler's journal. If you want to bring back in the theme of like the duality of the two of them,
Mhm.
where it's like I know what I have to become. Yeah, it's like he hasn't actually managed to do it yet. He might not manage to do it. I think that like the morality of Batman is always kind of going to be questionable. I think that's like a strength of the character, so I don't think it's just going to be like he transforms and now he's hope instead of vengeance and like handles everything properly. But like he sees that and can try to work towards that. But obviously I think it's like, if there is a second movie or just in general, will probably be a struggle for him, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because like even in the sequence right before that, like obviously it goes from one to the other, but I think like when he he takes the adrenaline or the venom shot or whatever, beats that guy to a pulp, and then like he says, the guy says, I'm vengeance. I don't know if I read this wrong, but it felt like in that moment, Batman hearing that guy say I'm vengeance, or at least Robert Pattinson's reaction visually to me, it seemed like he was about to fuck that guy
that's
up
what I was
if
thinking.
he didn't have to save the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it looked like he was going to go back in and be like,
Yeah. Well,
no,
I mean,
you're
like
not.
on my other viewings, I feel like knowing the ending, it seemed more like he was like reacting and like being like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like just being like surprised by it. But the first time I was like, "Yeah, this guy's dead." Like,
Yeah.
like he's gonna fucking beat this guy to a pulp, and he almost did.
I think if the movie was rated R, that guy would have looked visually a lot more fucked up.
Well, Gordon, it's implied because Gordon comes and he's like, "What the?" Like,
Yeah.
like it's
I
very
mean, the way
like,
he was punching him was ridiculous.
Wait, have
I
we
mean, I think this is a good time to bring it up. Do we think it was Venom? Was it adrenaline? What
I
was the
hope it
green
was
shit?
Venom.
Yeah.
I think it was.
What I said was that I think it's like an adrenaline shot or some kind of Wayne Tech thing that then Bane could turn into Venom by stealing it. You know?
I don't know if we've talked about that. Talked about this specific thing with that guy who says I'm vengeance at the end. But I was watching a video. For me, I couldn't tell because the guy.
Most people can't tell. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you already know this, but for the listeners, it's the guy he talks to at the funeral.
Yeah, it seems like it's probably
I didn't
him.
catch that till my third viewing.
Yeah.
Not
Even
even.
then, yeah.
Is it confirmed? Like,
It's
is
not
that
confirmed.
Oh,
No one
okay.
knows. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like it's within the margin of error where it just looks like a white guy, like a middle-aged white guy.
I
I
think
mean,
it looks pretty
separately,
close. I saw like I don't know.
what do you think the significance of that guy at the funeral is then? Whether it's the same person or not. What did you like? I felt like on the first watching, I was like, I don't know. Throughout all the watchings, I think that guy and the guy that's trying to sneak into the crowd are kind of there to show like, oh, it could be like anyone
Affected by the
who's
Riddler.
paranoid, and also like, yeah, the people are agreeing with this guy at this point. In
I mean, the first guy was in a green trench coat, so I kind of on my other viewings like, okay,
Maybe
guy
that's a
probably is part of the
follower.
Riddler follower. Yeah.
What about the guy that we're referencing though, where he's like, I don't know. By the fourth viewing, I kind of just got the idea that this guy was there to like reflect a sentiment of the city, and then is
Yeah.
like, "Wait, do I know you?" Because he realizes, "Wait, that's fucking Bruce Wayne." Later on in the conversation, because Bruce Wayne is so absent as a figure, you know
Well,
what
it's
I
the
mean?
second time within that same few minutes where people mistake Bruce Wayne as a fucking random person. The
Yeah,
Penguin was like, that's the reason he gets stopped when we were talking about before him charging up the steps. He's like,
true.
whoa, buddy, like, get out of here. And they're like, wait, that's Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
it doubles as both, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah. So, speaking of the Penguin, we talk about the Penguin a little bit.
The Penguin.
Fucking insane, dude. Like, totally unrecognizable as Colin Farrell.
And it never looks bad. Like even in the
No.
rain, in any lighting, it looks so good.
And of course, they have him waddle as a penguin when he's tied up or handcuffed later, right? It's pretty cool. I'm excited. Are you guys excited for the show, the Penguin show?
I don't know, maybe could be good. Seems like it probably could be.
I mean, if Matt Reeves is working on it,
exactly, yeah, that was
That's
Well,
the important
what is-
part. It's like the
what
same
is it
thing
gonna
with
be about?
Peacemaker.
So this kind of sets up what we were talking about at the end of the movie. Gotham is completely cut off from the outside of the world because the Riddler has blown up all the seaports and shit.
Okay.
It's kind of setting up a classic Batman story from the comics, No Man's Land.
Is Batman going to be in the show?
Well, we don't know. I would assume at some
Oh,
point he
okay.
would be, but
Okay, so it's just like the Penguin, like
it's
just
more focused on like the criminal underworld
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's what I thought.
and like
So
cops.
probably his power grab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to see smaller villains like Zaz. You know,
Yeah.
Fucking- I think it's actually going to be a really interesting thing, especially if, as we said, the same people are working on it. Like, you get to see all these villains that don't get to make the cut for the movie, you know?
The Red Hood.
Jeez.
Can you talk about Batman's No Man's Land? What is that?
Yeah, so
Strictly.
basically, it's funny, it also involves the Riddler. And basically, Batman fights the Riddler and fights, I think, Clayface and also like two other villains, but mainly the Riddler. And it ends up with Riddler blowing up all the bridges. And that starts a whole arc where Gotham is cornered off and just kind of festers because all the villains are in there and no one can escape. So it's kind of cool. It's also kind of what The Dark Knight Rises
Trying to
sort
do.
of referenced by blowing up all the bridges, which is like Bane's whole plan. But like, who cares? Because they don't do anything with it. Besides, I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think the Penguin show has a lot of potential, more potential than it would seem like. So
It's a cameo.
Sorry about that. I was
Cats.
Frogger was being a
bro, it
bitch
looks like you have a
upstairs.
tail. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a lot of cats. You have one cat.
I have a thing for strays.
Where's
The way
Tony?
the
Where's
cuts
Tony?
out and comes back in during that scene. Very
Yeah.
comic tier. Also,
Okay.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm insane and I'm just like pointing out like, oh, this is like the way I like characters and stories portrayed. Something about like a lot of the scenes in this movie where there's just like
Something
the
in
characters
the way?
talking.
Oh, all right.
That's funny. Something about it just like very much so evoked like the sense that it was like a telltale type of like influence.
I totally agree.
There are a lot of, I mean, Casey knows this, and Octavio, I think, but like there are a lot of things that reflect the Telltale games.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the final episode that takes place involving the political event. It also happens. Catwoman is involved. I feel like in the same kind of a similar way. Also, actually, now I want to branch off a little bit and talk about Catwoman. I think this is probably the best Catwoman performance we've got. Not that there's much competition, but like, I like that right now, at least, she isn't a meat. I think, okay, so when I first saw the movie, and you see that first scene she's in where she goes back to the apartment where Annika, the girl, is. It seems my perception, just based off only knowing Catwoman from the few other movies, and especially Telltale, was that she was running a scheme, and that she was going to be trying to pull a score or something. And that's my perception the whole time. And they play into it a little bit when they show her getting dressed and dropping out the back window, and they even mess with the music a little bit, and she starts to do that kind of strut she does, and I'm like, oh god, okay, this is classic Catwoman. You know, I didn't really like, not that I hated it or anything, but it's like, okay, I see what's happening here. But it gets inverted when it shows that Catwoman, at least at this point, I don't know what the future will hold or how they're going to play it out, but like is like humane and isn't looking out for herself only and is trying to look out for someone else. And I kind of like that it brought a new depth to Catwoman that we haven't seen before beyond just hot thief that Batman kiss, you know?
Yeah, it was first like woman in a Batman movie that is actually a character, which is pretty cool.
Right. Because as we know, Nolan hates women.
I felt like it was like pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I overall I liked it, but I feel like still not like, you know, perfect.
What do you
But
mean?
it's definitely the best there has been.
What do you mean?
Like I don't know, just like in the context of like it still feels like, I don't know if I have any like specific examples. I feel like there's still something in the portrayal where it kind of feels like backseat secondary female character. Like I feel like they do a good job of like making her her own character and like explicating that she has like her own motivations and doesn't just exist alongside or like to highlight Batman. But also at some points I feel like underneath the surface that's still what's happening. Does that make sense? Like she ends up becoming a vehicle for Batman to deliver his realization of like, no, your revenge will consume you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Fair.
I don't know. But I still feel like it's by far anything comparatively better. And I still liked Zoe Kravitz's performance and the way the character was done. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's still so many steps between this and like, would there actually be a possibility for a respectful, good Catwoman solo movie that, you know what I mean? Like, will we ever get like a serious? I don't know, man. It just feels like
Halle
Birds
Berry
of
playing
Prey.
basketball. What's the?
I mean, like, I get what you're saying, and I feel like that can be chalked up, personally, like, I chalk it up to two things. Like, firstly, there's a lot to juggle in this movie, and the fact that the movie does it really well and never really shows. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of fucking beats in this movie, you know what I mean? Right? You have the Wayne thing, you have the Batman Riddler thing, and you have Catwoman's thing, and you have even more under that. You know what I mean? So I think it makes sense within the story that her story doesn't cross with the topmost tier of what the Riddler's doing, beyond that she's involved in the underworld aspect of it. Yeah. And at the same time, I feel like it's done so well that if they did make a solo movie or a show or whatever, they have no question in my mind that she could deliver, and that this iteration could deliver. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's the main thing. But I mean, yeah, obviously it would have been nice if she had more scenes.
I mean, I was expecting it to not, or like Catwoman's role in the movie specifically.
I'm glad that it inverted my expectations.
Yeah. I definitely feel like it was better than I expected, and I think it was like, I don't know. I feel like my main point in what I said was I agree with what you said, Nabil. I think it's just like I don't want to come off as I'm like you're not
No,
even
I
I
mean
don't want to come off.
that's a valid critique. Like, you're not wrong. Like,
Yeah, I just like I think it's good, but also it's still like I don't want to be like, oh, this is like perfect, like finally. You know what I mean? Because I
yeah,
don't
no, I
feel
see what
that
you're
way
saying.
about
Like,
it.
I should clarify. Like, I'm not saying it's perfect either, but I think
Yeah.
it's like 90% right, and the
Well,
only 10% that's missing is just like I want more. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Not that
Yeah,
anything
I
was
agree.
wrong.
I think
What-
if they don't do an HBO Max show, they're missing out not only like on money,
Or if she
one,
doesn't show up, yeah,
but
like she could totally be a major part of the Penguin show.
totally,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I respect your critiques of it, Darian. Because yeah, I don't think it's perfect. So I pretty much agree with you. I think the critiques of it I will not fucking take are people who are like the Catwoman parts are boring, and I
Or
don't.
the Catwoman parts are woke.
Yeah, I don't mean to pull this card, but like, I'm sorry. Like, if you're saying that, like, do you just fucking like hate fucking women
People
in
of color.
movies? Like, literally, the woke shit is yes, you just don't like fucking people of color. The Catwoman's parts in the movie are boring, not as interesting as the Batman part. Like, okay, just
It's like
No,
fucking
I
like
you literally
just
genuinely
say
wouldn't be
you
saying
hate
that if she
women.
wasn't a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I
if it was fucking
genuinely think
Nightwing, like people would be like, okay, yeah, like, or if it was Robin, like
Yeah.
it's just fucking annoying. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
I think that's what the movie did well is like they made that the Catwoman scenes feel like equally important in the way that like,
Dramatic.
they took them seriously.
Like
You
her
know
thing
what I
with
mean?
Falcone as her father, and is she gonna kill him or not? And the whole resolution where Batman, tells her not to pay with her own life.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe this was like very intentional, but also maybe it was just like a personal thing. But I feel like there were like a lot of the points where it's like, I don't know, this was the way I explained it after the third time I watched it. I'll just try to do it the same way. Is like at certain points it feels like I was personally, whether intentional or not, made to relate to Catwoman more than Batman. And I thought it was really cool because it's like movie starts off and I would say like you're as a viewer you want to like you're rooting for Batman even though he's being extremely violent and not necessarily handling things the right way, right? Like you're with him and you understand and like you're in his perspective. And then you get to this point where he realizes some of the wrong in his ways, right? And he has that shift where he tells Catwoman on the roof, like, you know, don't do this, not this way, whatever, you don't have to pay. That's a separate scene. But when he's doing all of that, in those scenes, I was kind of like, I thought it was cool because then I was like, I still feel like I'm where Batman was at the beginning of the movie. Like, it's like, now he is trying to deliver that understanding that he came to the viewer. Like it's not just like Batman realizes things and you change your mind as he does. It's like he realizes things kind of like not explicitly and then like you come to the growth through Catwoman realizing you know what I mean? Like by the
Yeah.
time that she doesn't kill Falcone. I don't know. Does that make sense? It's kind of a confusing thing to explain.
Basically, like, the movie is good at fucking immersing you and putting you in and understanding of the perspectives of the main, well, any of the characters. I feel like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Yeah, I think you just put that really well. Like, you really feel it with them. It sounds cheesy, but I think it's just true.
Also, not to go off of that point, but completely relevant to what I said initially about not being perfect. Like one of the things that after having watched it, I don't think it's like I'm not trying to say this as like a criticism of the movie, like on a deep level or something, but I will say after watching him 4 times, and maybe this is a stupid criticism, or some people will think it's a stupid criticism, but I felt like a little bit of the romance between, or like the physical shit between Batman and Catwoman felt a little bit like forced or out of place. I think like the tension building of like, you know, him like restraining her and shit is just like makes sense like logically. Like they're trying to build tension between these two characters physically and like make you see them this way, you know what I mean, for like the payoff of them kissing and stuff. But also like I don't know, it felt kind of like parts of it just felt like kind of like this is
Well, like on the
happening now,
surface,
you know what I mean?
Like, I definitely felt that way in the beginning. For me, it was
Yeah,
kind
I
of the
think it gets
opposite.
better throughout.
Yeah, like the more
Definitely.
times I've seen it, like it makes sense that Bruce would try to learn humanity and realize that he's worthy of like literally being a human and experiencing love and finding value in life through her. And it makes sense that she, through her own trauma, would fall in love with Batman, especially after Batman literally saved her life by showing her that she can't throw it away.
That's exactly how I fucking felt about it, because someone said that to me also, that they were like, oh, it's felt so forced. And I was like, no, they're just like, I don't know, as like, doesn't necessarily mean it's like a good thing for either of them and that they don't like stay together, but like they're literally just like trauma bonding essentially over like their own shared like fucked up pasts, which I think is cool to see. And it's a good way to tell that like relationship instead of just being like what it typically is. And it's like, ooh, we're both like bad. We're like, I'm a bad boy. Like,
and the whole movie is about characters dealing with trauma in right, wrong, or however you want to judge it, kind of way. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So it's
it
perfect.
makes sense. Yeah.
I think that it's like the only way they could have done it in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to what Darian said, I realized about putting yourself in those shoes of the characters and understanding the perspectives is like feeling guilt. I feel like you kind of, or I feel like I kind of went along with the movie and feeling guilty that I was rooting for Batman as vengeance. You know what I mean? Like you see the first scene and obviously you still do, and it's like, oh my god, this is fucking badass. You know, I'm vengeance on the shadows. This is awesome. And at the end of the movie, you realize that it was all for fucking nothing, and it does a really good job of putting you in that seat where it's like, okay, well, what was the point? You know, and then it makes the end more rewarding. I literally feel like for both this idea and for the Catwoman thing we just talked about, like you literally have to be mature enough to realize those themes.
I don't know, maybe people will disagree. When I say people, I mean you guys, but also just human beings in general would disagree with this sentiment. But I think like it works so well, and I think that is kind of to a degree a universal experience, because unless you're someone who's dealt with these themes throughout your life and had to like reckon with them conceptually, I think it is like innately human to be vengeful when you are hurt or disempowered in your life. Like, I think it is completely natural for human beings to become angry and frustrated and not do the most self-growth oriented thing and just lash out, whether it's fucking physical violence or not. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I think that, I don't know, it's really interesting because by the end of the movie, you're like, you get the message, obviously, if you've been paying attention, like, oh yeah, like vengeance isn't the way to go. Instead, you know, like our scars can like destroy us, or they can like make us stronger. That whole thing, like, very explicit. But also, it's not like you fully like internalized and learned and grown, and neither has Batman. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like a realization that is difficult to deal with. And again, it's like you're doing this through the character, because I think he ends in the same place. You know what I mean?
I think that's a really good point, because, and especially like what you said about like, I don't know, I feel like if you take this on a surface level, it's very easy to be like, violence isn't the answer. And I feel like it's like a lot deeper than that. And um, when you're talking about like um, specifically like dealing with like difficult things from your past, like I think that it's like a hard thing for people to deal with the fact that like um, even simply just like that feeling of anger that's like very common after like traumatic childhood or like different traumatic events in your life, like um, there's a lot more freedom in like moving on from that anger and looking for something better. And I think like that's what I take away from it, and why I feel like there's like a very nice like personal emotional connection to it. Because like as he like talks about in a straightforward way, like that is the only way to heal. Um, and I just think that's cool, and should be, I don't know, like appreciated more, rather than like I feel like some people with the movie have been saying like, oh, it kind of beats you on the fucking head with its like morality fucking theme, but like I don't know. I think there are like better ways to take it, and you can kind of take what you want out of it in that way.
I want to say two things, just very like cursory comment that we can come back to is I think it's like innately such a Batman thing where it's like Batman doesn't kill, etc. Right? Like, but it's like kind of ironic. I don't know. Like, anyways, my point is I think this movie covers that in like the most interesting and dynamic way possible through everything we talked about. And secondly, I just wanted to say, not to get like too abstract here, and we don't have to stay on this, but I think it's really interesting what you're saying, because it's like also I think another thing which is obviously thematically present, maybe less so throughout the movie, is this concept of like obviously there's like revenge and like violence is connected to that, but I think like also if you take it another layer down, it's like violence and then revenge and then like this concept of justice where it's like seeking vengeance is like a way to like right things that were wronged, whether it be for like the direct example of like Catwoman killing Falcone, or like Batman beating the fuck out of criminals because his parents died at the hands of criminals, whatever, or the Riddler killing people that are corrupt and exposing them. All these things are like, or the police, like it's all different forms of like justice, like finding a resolve to something bad that happened. And I think also by the end of the movie, it's not just like I don't need to scare people, I need to give them hope. I think it's also like getting justice doesn't necessarily mean like physically correcting something. It's more so about uh giving people the strength to move on from what happened, right? Like giving them hope is justice, like for them, because justice is not a thing that is focused on the person who did something wrong, or maybe it shouldn't be, right? We shouldn't be focused on, if you want to fucking go back to the like police thing, like justice shouldn't be focused on the wrongdoer but the person that was wronged. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's why like it's about instilling something within someone rather than like enacting something upon someone else. So whether that's like helping other people or helping yourself, which I think is like a pretty cool theme.
Yeah. And Darian mentioned, I like that aspect about justice and how that kind of works in the abstract. And it's funny, it made me think like how the Riddler's riddle literally comes true, right? So he says like, it can be cruel, poetic, or blind, but if denied its violence, you may find. And that's literally like what you just described.
That's crazy.
Like, I just realized that the way you were putting that is like, it took violence for cruel, poetic, and blind justice to occur, and through those things, what I mean is it's all intertwined. You know what I mean? And it's like it's kind of crazy to think about. Maybe I'm reaching. I don't know if that's the actual intention, but
No, I
it's kind
think
of
that's
crazy.
cool.
And then before you said, we're talking about how the different casts kind of like, or putting yourself in different perspectives to recognize themes. It made me think of when Catwoman says to Batman when he's like accosting her verbally, and he's like, she says like, "Oh well, you obviously grew up rich." You know what I mean? And even shows
woke, Catwoman moment, woke.
Ben Shapiro and the Batman is
And
Batman,
that
like
makes
his siblings.
Zoe Kravitz is bad as Catwoman because she's not white like Anne Hathaway. And
it's funny because like there's the Ben Shapiro review and also some other guy who went viral, conservative, like reviewing it, and they were just like, I think both of them said in some way, shape, or form, one more obvious than the other, that are you okay? That they're critiquing the movie and they say that, well, of course they made all the black people good.
yes,
Like that's
literally,
just racist.
that's exactly when you say like one of them said, that's exactly how Ben Shapiro said it.
Yeah, I
Like,
think it was Ben Shapiro.
If all the white people were good,
Like, of course,
But he
this
said
movie is
anything.
woke because Catwoman is black and Commissioner Gordon is black, and they're both good guys. Like,
Jesus Christ.
that's
how do you
literally
even?
it's like political discourse at this point.
No,
It's fucking-
that's not even true. Because in the original scene, I think they were like the kid who had half the Joker face was, he was of color, and I think there were like 2 or 3 people in the group as well.
I think most of the people in the group were people of color.
Yeah.
I think the point is you're fucking insane if you're viewing this and counting who's fucking what race and who
Also,
isn't.
If there's ever any kind of Riddler close related incident in the United States, I think it's Ben Shapiro, bro. It's gonna be that motherfucker, dude.
well, it literally
Also,
is alt-right tier
If
people.
you
That's
are my
why.
sister, please do not lie.
What?
What is the price
I
of your
said fake tits.
Jesus?
All right.
Oh, what
Big-
do liberals do when they're dead? They liberate.
They live still.
They live still.
Lib.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say. Oh god, that fucking
Jesus, so loud.
holy shit! That audio
the volume of
clipping.
that cough was awesome.
I
Okay.
sound like the IMAX fucking Batmobile, bro. Shit hurt.
But
Go ahead.
no, I mean it's completely natural why they have to like find ways to discredit this movie for other reasons. Because do you think Ben Shapiro is gonna address that like the fucking alt-right inspired villain is like a completely legitimate fear? Like,
Yeah, it just could be real. It has been real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to use this like as a seg. I'm glad you said that, Casey. Back to the movie, but also still on this topic, very much so. How did you feel about that, like, I think for me it was, I mean, I guess it's obviously a political thing, so maybe not for everyone, but I feel like it was a very obvious point was, like, radicalization online by, like, fringe groups who feel that they're fucked over by the system. Like, what did you think about that, like, subtext that came into the Riddler thing? I think specifically it comes in the third act so hard.
Yeah.
Obviously it's kind of always there because it's Riddler's intertwined with politics and dissatisfaction and corruption, whatever. But like the people like taking back and like that final video that he posts, like the way he's talking feels like it was like very intentionally supposed to sound like some shit you would read on 4chan before the Capitol riot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, thoughts?
I think it's great for a couple reasons. One, because it's very real, and I don't know. People who have problems with that, like, I'm sorry, like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, it's like, I feel like if you're upset that they're showing like something that's like very realistic in that way, like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But I also do think though that like they don't like, and I think this is a good thing. Maybe this is controversial, but like they don't say that like their complaints are completely wrong, because like they have valid concerns and like frustrations, just as like all people do with power and how like governments handle things. So on like various levels, from like lawmakers to like business people, people in power, to like people who enforce laws. Um, I think like it's a good thing that they don't just be like, like the, because and that's why kind of, maybe some people view it as like woke, but it's like, no, all of those things are true, and people do have a right to be upset about them. It's just, how do you go about that? And they do condemn that, obviously.
Right. And a whole part of Batman's arc is realizing that the Riddler is coming from a place of concern, of valid concern.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that his family did do some shady shit to some degree.
Mhm.
So I definitely agree. Like, they're not saying that all those people are wrong and crazy. The reason they're wrong and crazy is because they're fucking murdering people and shooting civilians.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And it even shows, like, kind of going back to the Riddler himself, is like, I saw some other criticism kind of involving this where people were like, well, the Riddler was so methodical and only killed corrupt people. Why is he fucking telling his people to shoot the new mayor at the end if she's going to bring change to Gotham? Well, he literally says it. He says that we know Gotham's true face. They're going to fuck us over again. And then he takes that violent step over the line and causes this whole thing to unravel and fucking throw the whole city upside down and start killing people randomly.
Also, I think his whole thing...
He's a fucking psychotic person. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's like the same thing with Batman where he's like, I couldn't do it myself, so I like basically manipulated you into enacting violence to like... It's the same thing with the other people, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
using them
honestly,
as
even
tools.
if he didn't go to Arkham, I doubt he would have been out there with a rifle because that's not the type of person he is, you know what I
Right.
mean?
He's a little bitch.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to respond to Casey's thoughts on the... I think it's good that it's in there, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way. I like the concept and everything. I would say this is like my number one weak spot of the movie, and maybe it's a bit too critical. I liked the concept of what they were doing with it. It felt like it just didn't get developed enough, and I know that like maybe the point is that it doesn't need to be developed because these are just like everyday people that are doing this. But it just like, I felt like there was a little bit more that could have been given outside of like, here's the video with people commenting on it, and then here are these people armed and shooting the mayor. I wish they gave it like a little bit more time, because that's the only part of the movie, that part of the third act, where I'm like, it felt a little bit weak, just like plot wise, you know what I mean? Because conceptually, I think it's really good. I don't have a problem with like any of the things we just talked about. I like all of them. I just wish that like I don't know, like it feels like there's just a couple like scenes maybe involving these people, or like maybe like a little bit more earlier on in the movie where there is like a social reaction to what the Riddler's doing earlier on that would have made it feel more cohesive. But also, I get that they wanted to give it a twist, so I don't know. I mean, they definitely do play into the like, people are supporting the Riddler, there's a large social media reaction thing, so it's not like they don't do that. I'm not saying
And they hint at it, like we said, with the funeral and the people in the crowd.
Yeah, I think it felt like there was a little bit of a jump from like all of that to like, okay, now they're literally here and shot the mayor. And then as quick as that happens, Batman fucking beats them all up, and then they immediately have to go to the flood thing. I felt like there's just some kind of like, that's like the only weak spot of the pacing in the movie for me. I don't
Mhm.
even think like there's like that exposition dump part. I didn't have a problem with that
Yeah.
as much so as that for some reason. I don't
I
know
think that's
why.
something people have been saying is like people have kind of said something like that to more an extreme degree where it's like, oh, the plot dump thing got in the way. But I feel like all of that is A, again, to me, that didn't get in the way, and B, like it's necessary to develop Batman's character and fulfill his arc. And I feel like the movie had to prioritize fulfilling the arc rather than doing like adding scenes like you said. Like I feel like if this was a second movie in a trilogy, we'd see more of that because there's time to, you know. This movie
Yeah.
has the added task of, like I said, fulfilling his arc, exploring his story, and explaining how the Waynes fucking inspire the Riddler, and that revelation shakes Batman to his core.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying.
Also, maybe this is on another level. I'm starting to realize maybe part of the way or reason I feel that way is because, and I don't know if this is even like a point of like fair criticism, but it just felt like compared to the flood and the bombing, these people are like such an insignificant threat. It's almost like I get why they're there because I like the purpose of like the political commentary and also just the concept that like it's more than just the Riddler, it's all of these people. But it felt like maybe there should have been more of them. Maybe they should have like killed more people. I don't know if this sounds ridiculous, but it felt like they bring this up and it's like a serious thing and then Batman just deals with it and then like okay, back to the flood, like whatever, these people are fucking like destroyed, like they're weak. But maybe that's also the point. Maybe it's like yeah, they have no power. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It
No,
felt
I
like
agree.
they weren't taken as seriously as they could have been maybe.
But at the same time, like you said, like if you cut them out and it's just the flood, I feel like I'd be wondering, like, well, didn't we hear that he has followers and we get hinted at it during the funeral? Like, I don't know. I think it
Exactly. No, I think like you can't take it out. I just like maybe wish that
want
it
to add
was like
more.
yeah, maybe they like if I don't know, something. I wish there's just a little bit more to that part. But it doesn't make me like hate the ending or the movie or anything. I think it's still really good. Also, I still think those scenes are fucking awesome where he's beating them up. The fucking like the guy saying vengeance. I
Yeah.
think all that shit is good.
The guy
still.
hitting him with the shotgun.
Yeah, dude, that was insane.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to say separately something we didn't touch on, completely different level. But when he fucking blows up the roof, that entrance is so badass.
Yeah.
Great
Shit was
part.
awesome. And then he's fucking fighting them in the smoke when he uses the gun.
True.
Great. Good shit. And then, of course, you have Catwoman and Gordon coming up. And I feel like that was good, too, like, addressing their chemistry and continuing that, because it's kind of needed to remind people, again, for that last scene where they meet, they drive away. Yeah, that was good.
Also, Commissioner Gordon, I know I don't know. Very good
Best
throughout the movie.
Gordon.
Yeah, I like how proactive
Absolutely.
he is, and you know what I mean. I don't know. It's
Yeah. Well, I mean, people before and after this movie have drawn comparisons to David Fincher's Seven, and I think it really does. That's one of the strongest things, inspirations. It seems like where it's just two good people in a corrupt system taking it on, and I love how much time they spend together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love their relationship. Something else in that last flood scene, the bat symbol being a knife. What do we
True.
think?
Fuck with it.
It's pretty cool.
It was revealed
Yeah.
a little bit earlier when he like cuts
Or
the.
yeah, it wasn't.
The
Yeah,
crime scene cutting.
it's a good way to reveal it. You know, it's like, oh, nice.
Mhm.
I remember before the movie, a lot of us thought that it would be the gun that killed his parents.
Yeah.
I realized that was kind of silly to think that. Would have been, I
He
don't know.
found the gun that killed his parents.
Or like he took out, yeah, I guess that does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Not to jump back, but just on the level of like, I think one of the most fucking, well, two things now actually. The grappling hook being used as an offensive weapon primarily is sick. Secondly, though, the scene where he is fighting all the guys and there's only like muzzle fire illuminating.
Well, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
we gotta talk
Really
about that.
good.
Oh my god.
And on an even lower level, the first club scene where he takes the bat and just throws it at Kenzie's face and breaks his
As
nose.
he's shooting, right?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is fucking one of my favorite parts of the combat / the movie.
The clubs.
Yeah.
So sick.
Can we talk about like our favorite shots overall? I think
Yes.
the muzzle flash, I think, is an obvious one. I also, I'm sure y'all have heard this, but for listeners, completely practical, filmed in 3 separate shots pieced together, I think is pretty cool. I think also just like that whole scene where he like enters the club as Bruce Wayne and then like gets into his suit, is sick as fuck. I think the beginning club scene, like you were saying, just like hearing like club music fucking playing, all the lighting as it's
The
just
people
like
who are watching the fight, and it's
Yeah.
kind of, I think, well, not kind of, it was confirmed, are like cheering at some point during the fight. It's kind of insane. I love the whole club. Yeah.
Yeah, the clubs.
Iceberg Lounge, classic.
When
Iceberg
Catwoman's
Lounge.
going in, that is really well done. Very.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
The
We need to talk about
downstairs,
that. Yeah.
the 45.
I think
club.
just one small thing of that scene. I think the guy who plays Coulson, the DA,
Dude, he's good.
he did
he's
a
great.
really good. I think one of the best like performances that I can recall of acting fucked up on something, because obviously we don't know what drops are, whatever. But like,
Obviously, we don't know what drugs are. We would never. No. I wouldn't.
I don't know. I feel like it's
I
like a
wouldn't.
perfect representation, because I think at first it's like, oh, Catwoman doesn't want to look at him. You're expecting him to be like a creep like the rest of these guys, but it's just like,
You feel bad for him, sort of, in some
yeah,
way.
it's like
Like,
he's just like fucked up and just like spilling
scared.
all of his emotions.
You can tell he's
Yeah.
really scared. Yeah.
Also, not to go away from the club thing, so I want to go right back to it. But when he's about to die in the bomb scene, and like just classic, perfect like moment of redemption, a second before he dies, right? I
Mhm.
think in him being like, it's like the, well, if I say something, it might save me, but then my family's gonna die, and I'll probably die also. I think it's good. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
agree.
oh, there's his humanity, and he's now dead.
Did a good job.
Like,
He's one of the Skarsgård. What's his name? Let's
Oh.
see. Peter Sarsgaard. Yeah, that whole family is really good. But dude, the fucking scene that you brought up where Catwoman enters the club and we're viewing it, we're Batman viewing it through the computer, through the camera in her eyes, is like fucking genius. Firstly, on a technical level, because of the fact that Matt Reeves could make a whole sequence where you're viewing something on a computer so compelling. I mean, for most of it, you see it in that brown, rugged screen.
yeah.
And Matt Reeves has talked a lot about that choice in fusing vintage and new age tech and to make something that's kind of like uncanny in between. And he also talked about putting you in the shoes of being objectified as a woman, which was like kind of absurd to me, that I didn't really like. I like felt, but I couldn't identify until I like saw it again and read about it.
These guys have a problem with eye contact.
Like you-
feels
yeah.
good, doesn't it? Like that's
Like I feel like you actually do feel like you understand what it's like if you're fucking one of us, like
Definitely not to the full extent, but you kind of get a
it's like a good
glimpse,
well,
example.
more in a way than you would expect in a fucking superhero movie.
Well, also, it's
Yeah.
just like more effort is put into doing it in that way, in this sense, because like it's from her perspective, whereas like even on a surface level of wanting to include something like that, and like
Mhm.
it'd be so easy to just do the scene normally and have someone say something to her, and it wouldn't have the same level of like effect. You know what I mean? Do you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think something on that note, and bringing back to like the people being upset about it, being like woke Catwoman. This is not only a great fucking portrayal of Catwoman and portrayal of a female character for like however many other reasons, but I'd just like to make a comparison to like women in Marvel movies where like their perception of like a strong woman is like fucking like girl boss, fucking drone strike with a fucking pride flag on it. I think that like what you're saying here, it just feels like a lot more like intention is placed
Yeah, exactly.
in like how they actually.
It's more like, I don't know what the word is, endearing. Like, I actually, like you said, like, it's perfect. Like, I feel like that was the intention of it.
Yeah.
To feel that threat.
Yeah.
That you would feel in that moment.
And it's like, it's not made to be like a. I don't know. I feel like sometimes with that stuff, it's like, I don't know if this makes sense, but it's like played off not as like a haha like funny joke, but it's played off as a joke to like counteract like the kind of like seriousness or like intensity of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But it's not. It's just like, no, this is like, it's like keeps the tension. It's like a stressful situation, and then it eventually like is too much, and she like takes the shit off, takes the lids out.
Yeah, Matt Reeves also talked about the choice of how I feel like in another. Well, he also described in another movie, someone talking to you in an earpiece would sound like it's coming through an earpiece, and he talked about how painstakingly they decided to alter that and make it sound like Batman. When Batman's talking to her, it's like the voice of God, and it's above you in the speakers when you watch the movie. And I feel like that was a pretty interesting choice, just like something small but like pretty cool technically.
Yeah.
And I'd say a lot of this I'm drawing from, and probably will continue drawing from, is people should check out this Adobe podcast that Matt Reeves did with one part with his cinematographer Greg Fraser, who did phenomenal in this film, and the other part with his color grader, whose name I'm fucking forgetting. But it's really insightful and kind of leads me to what I want to talk about next, which is the technical aspect of the movie. And one thing I wanted to talk about specifically that he mentioned in the podcast was the use of like dirtying the frame, and they purposefully sought out using lower end lenses that were like fading and dirty. And the fucking studio like was like, you sure you want to do that? And he's like, yeah, I want to do that. And that's what they did. And if you notice in the movie, like there's a constant, and it's intentional, the middle is very focused and the sides are very blurry. And I really like the way they use that in this movie.
That's awesome.
And it gives it like a, in his own words, like a 70s look, and also like purposefully like focuses you on what's in the frame.
It feels like a fucking like, and like they talk about like vintage with new, but it's like, it feels like I don't know. I love 70s film. It feels obviously like it's a modern movie, so it's going to look like a modern movie, but like it feels like a like 70s fucking like Scorsese type, like it's just shot like that. It's so nice.
Yeah, and it's like you look at how intentional the lighting and the cinematography is in this movie. I'm sorry to say it, but I mean it stands for some of the other DCU movies too, but like compared to like fucking Spider-Man No Way Home, the most recent Marvel movie, which most people on the podcast didn't even hate as a movie in many ways. But like I feel like you have to admit, you look at that and you look at this, it's night and day, literally. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely,
you can tell that Spider-Man was filmed on a fucking blue stage and is fucking bleached over, you know? It's nice to see that kind of craft being brought back to big budget movies.
Totally
yeah,
agree.
so I just wanted to mention that.
I need to watch those podcasts. Seems really good.
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't had the chance to take any like film courses personally, but like it's the closest I personally have gotten to it. The way they get very technical about it and talk about things I'm not even versed enough to repeat, because they go very technical about the names of the lenses and the way they did the color grading and the way they talk about using like sodium vapor as the main color for the movie. So yeah, no, I highly suggest people check it out. Maybe I'll link it in the description.
Not to jump back, but I just forgot to mention this earlier. Something interesting about the Telltale influence. This literally is all I know and can say about it. But I watched one interview with like Jeffrey Wright, Zoe Kravitz, and Robert Pattinson. And they all three talk about the Telltale Batman game, and like I don't know exactly what they said, but they're like reading through like it's one of those things where it's like they fucking whatever YouTube channel, they have them like read through Reddit posts, you know. But they all three at one point like reference like, oh yeah, like this reminds me of like the Telltale game, and then talk about how much they liked it. So I'm starting to question whether or not that had a direct influence on the story, or if like, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, if
I
all
guess
three of
they
them
all
are talking about it, probably did.
Exactly. Oh, also Paul Dano is there, so 4. My point being, like, they could have all just researched these things independently, but it kind of seems like that was part of the like writing or directing research also.
Can we
Do you know
talk
what I mean?
about the influences, because I think they're pretty interesting. We got to talk about the Something in the Way needle drop. But I think that just a couple that I found that were pretty cool with that. Again, we all know this, but for listeners, Matt Reeves was just like listening to Nirvana and was like, yeah, this guy is Kurt Cobain. I want to make my Batman Kurt Cobain. And that's why they used the song. Pretty cool. There's the Riddler like costume and mask is like inspired by the Zodiac Killer, and I think it's cool also because there's a lot of like ties to like the Zodiac movie, which is cool. I think that there's something else.
Well, I mean, speaking of 70s, he talked about Chinatown movie being a big influence, and just like 70s detective noir thrillers.
For sure.
Another thing I was reading today was pretty insane. I don't know much about crime history, but Whitey Bulger being like basically like directly Falcone is just like that's where it comes from. It's like just like pretty insane to think about like this. This is a fucking complete sidebar, but Matt Reeves was talking about how it inspired his portrayal of Falcone in this movie. Whitey Bulger just like literally was working with the FBI to the point that the FBI was obstructing their own people and like lower level law enforcement to protect him. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously a different time, I guess, but holy shit.
Yeah.
That was cool.
This is it's what The Departed by Martin Scorsese is based on.
Good movie.
Yeah, it's great movie. You should watch it, Darren, if you're interested in that.
Dude, Darian would love that movie.
Yeah, you'd fucking love it. We should. I would do a Filmatic on that.
Yeah, man. We could do a few Scorsese movies.
Specifically about him?
It's not.
I mean, we're inspired by.
So yeah, it's not like. I mean, the characters' names aren't, but it is the same exact story, and it takes place in Boston, and where like Whitey Bulger's was like the leader of the mob there, and yeah, it's about the like, well, actually, it kind of spoils things.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. Yeah, it sounds cool.
God damn it! But
it's a good crime movie. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's good.
Don't think too much about what Casey said.
Yeah, fuck.
Also, just I literally have already not thought about it because I just remembered something else I wanted to say. So we're good.
Basically, it's just like who's the rat? They're trying to figure out who's the rat.
Yeah.
classic kind of thing.
The Kurt Cobain thing, I was having a conversation about this, and outside of like the song thing, I just wanted to say, I think it's like so cool, like the other layers of the influence, like obviously not solely from Kurt Cobain, because Nabil, you were saying it's a thing from the comments, Jesus, from
Check the
the
comments.
comics,
Yeah.
where like Batman is like journaling and like also just very Kurt Cobain thing, right? And like the concept of him just being like fucking depressed alone in this mansion, like hating the world, having like this internal anger. I don't know, I think it's like surprisingly works so well for Batman, something I would have never thought of if it weren't for this vision that Matt Reeves had and mentioned. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty sick.
I've been starting to develop, just thinking about like that kind of thing, thinking about this movie, kind of a hot take on Batman, at least in like new form media, so like games, movies, etc., not the comics. But like the most interesting things about Batman seem to take place when he's not fully Batman, right? Because like I feel like, I mean, I think all of us maybe to some degree have played an Arkham game or two, but like in those games, Batman is peak Batman. Besides Origins, Batman is peak Batman, and he's very assured of himself and his abilities, both mentally and physically. And it's obviously it's badass. But if you try to think about it on any thematic level, it's kind of boring. He's literally like robotic. It makes moments in like, I'm gonna be referencing the game heavily, but like makes moments in like Arkham Knight at the end of that game specifically, where they try to do things more emotionally about like, not to spoil anything, but like, oh, is Batman gonna end? Is this the end of his legacy or whatever? It makes like a peak Batman that people want, where the same people who are saying like, oh, like why isn't he a playboy and why is he an emo and whatever. It's almost like the Batman that they want is like fucking boring and robotic, right? It's like on one side, in the day, I'm a playboy billionaire, and at night, I am the vigilante, a stone cold vigilante who can beat up a crocodile. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to say is like that isn't really interesting in some ways. This is interesting. I don't know.
This is a dynamic character, whereas the other one's more static. He doesn't fucking change, and he's predictable, you know? Which is something that even in the previous Batman movies they allude to, like the Joker, like in the Dark Knight, like he several times says how predictable Batman is, you know, throughout the film.
And it's like that's like the number one rule. Okay, I don't know what the number one rule of storytelling is, I guess, but it seems I guess is one of the rules of storytelling is like change, you know, like showing change and how change inflicts things onto people. And if you don't have change, then is your story really interesting? And then it goes back to what we were first talking about, which is emotion. And if you don't have emotion, then what's the point of fucking making a story, whether it's a superhero movie or something else? Yeah.
I don't mind applying it to storytelling, but if you're uncertain of that, at the very least, I think that is an objective necessity for characters.
Characters, yeah, that's a better way.
So,
character
and
growth.
emotion. Yeah. Also, I think like it just comes back down to like not to try to like fucking like unmask like the wonder of like storytelling or characters, but literally, it's just more real. Like, it's more fucking realistic, you know what I mean? To be a character that is challenged and changes because of it, or at least tries to, or is pushed to. You know what I mean? Like, no human being that I know, literally, I will make this a universal rule, goes through any interesting event without questioning something. You know what I mean? Like, so I agree with you fully. I think like it's the same problem that I can bring up with like fucking the new Spider-Man movies. Like, I feel like for a while, and I think people have changed their mind on this more recently, and I'm not saying just like individual people that I've talked to. I think at large, liking Tom Holland more than Andrew Garfield, and even more so just shitting on Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, not because of his performance, not because of the second movie, but just because of like the portrayal of him being so edgy and shit like that, him being a loner, whatever. Like, I think like at the end of the day, maybe I've just watched enough analysis to get this, and it wasn't that well portrayed. But like, I think it's just a case of like Mark Webb's Peter Parker makes sense in the real world. Like, his fucking parents are dead. His uncle died, and he didn't do anything about it when he feels like he could have. Like, yeah, like he's gonna fucking be an asshole, and he's not gonna become Spider-Man until the end of the movie. Like that, it
Yeah.
like on a
Well,
character level, I
yeah.
think it works. You know what I mean?
Well, it just goes back to the thing. It's like you have to be mature to understand a mature take. Like, I feel like when we were all kids, we all pretty much universally agreed that Andrew Garfield isn't the best Spider-Man, and he's such a cool skater guy. Like, that's the entire depth of his character to you. And then you realize that life is more complicated than that, you know? Like,
Yeah, true.
I don't know. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing is, like, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I'm not even, like, trying to shit on Homecoming. Far From Home, I think, sucks for completely different reasons. It has nothing to do with Peter Parker's
Multiple
character.
reasons, yeah.
But I think one of the weak spots, initially for that movie is, like, it's made in it's, like, intentionally supposed to be less mature, and that's, like, fine. It is what it is. But, like, it doesn't... I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah, well,
think,
it's like being thrusted with the responsibility of protecting an entire city is a pretty heavy thing, depending on how you look at it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Versus like Far From Home, which is it's a fun summer romp, and will he get the girl? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
totally
I
different
think No Way
intentions.
Home improves on a lot of those
It's one
things,
of
at
the
least in
reasons.
character. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and if you want to apply it to a different character, like even Superman, that's the reason it's hard to make a good Superman story. It's because he's fucking static. He's a fucking all good Boy Scout, which is one of the reasons. Maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. I'm not really on the pulse with this thing, if it even has a pulse anymore. But Man of Steel, I like Man of Steel for multiple reasons. You know, you can argue that Zack Snyder's like visual directing style is a acquired taste, but on a character level, I would say it's the best Superman movie. I mean, beyond like Superman 77 or whichever year in the 70s that was, the first one that like introduced the character and was one of the first superhero movies, like that has its own like accolades. But like as a story that challenges Superman in the way that I'm talking about, I feel like a story has to. I feel like Man of Steel has it.
yeah,
I
I
think
don't know. Yeah, I think like I don't remember Man of Steel well enough. I don't like. I didn't dislike it or anything. I just haven't seen it in so long. I haven't seen it like since the year after it
Yeah.
came out.
Well, it's like it's
so.
the same tier. It's the same people who are mad that Bruce Wayne is emo. Same people who were feeling this way about feeling similar way about Andrew Garfield. The same tier of emotions we're talking about. And it's the same. Those are the same people who are like, "What? Superman breaks Zod's neck at the end of Man of Steel? What?
Forgot
What the
that
fuck?
happened.
What
Okay,
the
yeah.
fuck, Zack Snyder?" It's the whole movie's building up to that point, and him fucking having to make a choice of how human he wants to be, and then he has
Yeah.
to deal with that choice in Batman v Superman, which I also don't hate, which I've described before on the podcast.
I mean, it's kind of hilarious because like every example, which to be fair, yes, is only 3 that we've gone through, but like, I don't know. Everyone talks about like superhero movie tropes. Maybe this is a deeper running one. I feel like Spider-Man: No Way Home realized that it needed the exact same thing to be interesting. Like the Raimi trilogy, Amazing Spider-Man, like going through these like the Batman, Superman, like going through this arc where it's like you have to reckon with like the concept of like taking something too far, I don't know, like abusing your power, not doing the right thing with it. It can be like abstractly defined in a better way than I am. But you know what I mean? Like Tobey Maguire
Flaws.
fucking kills or directly influences the death of the guy that killed his uncle.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield isn't really doing anything for the right reason. Same thing with Batman. Superman kills Zod. It's like I feel like that was necessary, and they acknowledge it so like explicitly, even in the script, like in No Way Home, where they're like, "Oh, like Aunt May did die for a reason because this happened to us and it hasn't happened to you yet."
And then
That
all you get
scene-
out of the general public is like cinema sins is like, this doesn't make sense, plus 100 points, you know? Like
Yeah.
like that's the extent of what people remember about Man of Steel. I'm confident if you took a survey, that's what it would be. The same sentiment, you know? So I just want to touch on a few things that we may have missed throughout that I'm thinking of. So like we mentioned Falcone, great. Just want to say great work by John Turturro. I like the way that I feel like his acting was more subtle. You know, I feel like it could be easily misconstrued as like lazy, as I read in one review. But I feel like it was very subtle. I like the way that he like slows down his voice when he becomes more like threatening and introspective and like twisted. So like when he's talking to Bruce specifically, actually the most major thing would probably be in that voicemail recording of him killing that girl. He's like, "Oh, you know about the deal," you know. I like the way he acted that out.
I think he just like did the character well. Also, just on the
like,
surface level
perfect.
of like,
Yeah.
he's very like just confident and at ease saying all of this shit, and like
Because he
very-
runs the city.
yeah, and I like how
Yeah.
they reveal that like in the fucking. I mean, I guess it's not the best example because I don't know. I guess there aren't that many examples. It's done kind of quickly, but like Bruce talks to him about his parents, and then it's like, obviously he was lying, but like he's so good at it. It makes so much sense that he could be the rat, but also the top criminal. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you're right. The way the confidence really does it. Yeah, in the reveal where the cop who's moonlighting as a mobster, or the mobster who's moonlighting as the cop, as Batman puts it.
yeah.
When he says like, I think Gordon asks him on top of where the bat signal is, and he's like, so you guys have been working for Falcone all this time? He's like, no, we work for him.
Yeah.
You know, I like the way they twist. It's classic, but it worked really well.
I think
Yeah, like it makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, this is a ridiculous like leap. You know what I mean? And I'd say that's like present from the first scene he's introduced in, where he's talking to Catwoman. He has like this like casual,
Yes.
confident, intimidating vibe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that view from her perspective, where he's like in the shadows, and all you can see is the name tag that pops up from the ID in the Bat computer. You know, Falcone, head of the Falcone organization, fucking Falcone organization, whatever. Yeah, and wait, Casey, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think it's also important that he kind of functions as like a like you're talking about him being more subdued, and I think that like the Penguin kind of already does like the very like over the top like,
Hey, what are you doing here?
okay, yeah. New York mobster.
It's the freaking Bat.
Yeah. Exactly. So like, if he's already doing that, I feel like there needs to be a difference in character between those two, and I think it's done well.
I want to share my ongoing art project that I've been working on for the podcast. I'm making a bat symbol out of S's.
Nice.
Kind of looks like a. I don't even know.
That actually
I'm
reminds
working
me.
here.
It's the freaking Bat. Dude, I hope they just put more Arkham things in the game, more Arkham things in the movie. You know,
they put
like
more
the next movie, like I want him to.
Game.
I hope in the next movie, like he just has to interrogate a Riddler thug, you know? And he's like flashing green. He has to find a Riddler trophy maybe somewhere, you know.
He has to. as
little
Bruce
blue
Wayne,
shockwaves appear every time
he
he
has
punches
to
someone.
walk through the prison and to
That's it. He has to walk through the prison.
and as Bruce Wayne. All right, sorry. Can we just talk about the Arkham City? Did they ever explain why they turned the city into a jail? I don't remember.
Because Gotham doesn't give a shit about its citizens, I guess. Really, I think that was the main point. Like, well, because Hugo Strange. God, this is so funny.
Wow.
Why do I know this? So it's like Hugo Strange convinced the board. I don't know what the actual term is. The elected officials in Gotham, I guess. You actually hear this little meeting as you're working your way through the steel mill at the end of the game. Oracle's relaying it through your earpiece. Hugo Strange convinces them that to do this project, and also orchestrates Protocol 10, which is his plan to kill every single inmate in Arkham City. And he gets them to do that by putting like a clause in the contract when they created Arkham City where he gets like full control if the inmates start like hurting each other, which is directly because of his own doing. It's kind of cool how they show. But my point is they orchestrate at the end of Arkham City exactly how he did that. I'm doing probably a bad job of summarizing it.
Interesting. You gotta replay the game, honestly.
Dude, you got to. I play that game so many times. Yeah. As Octavio held up his bat symbol, reminded me, maybe this was just me, but when he has the flare, obviously that iconic scene at the end of the movie, and the people are coming towards the flare as he's walking out, it looked to me like it was a bat symbol, kind of. Was that just me?
I didn't
I don't
pick
know.
up on that,
I
but
would
it
have
might
to
been.
see it again.
Like kind of like the head was here and the group of people was like the wings, sort of. I don't know. I just thought of that. Something I want to talk about also. We talked about the bat signal in the top of that building. I mentioned this to some of you after we watched the movie, but that whole exterior is not a green screen. It's a special technology called the Void, which is a full, maybe 360 or at least 240 degree screen where they can put any background. So it's like the kind of alternative, the new alternative to using a green or blue screen. And I think it's kind of incredible that they started using it in The Mandalorian, and that's where it was first introduced. But like in this movie, like I don't think you could tell unless you knew. I don't know what you guys thought of it, but it looked incredible.
I thought everything was fucking real. I thought all the backdrop drops are real, like genuinely.
No, it looks really good.
Yeah, and they've talked about like how useful it is because normally with green screen the problem is lighting, but literally by using them they can create their own natural lighting with the exterior. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of practical effects, there are a lot of practical effects in this movie, and it shows. I mean, the Batmobile chase, a lot of that was practical. Including some that shot where he's jumping through the explosion, that was real.
Holy shit!
I appreciate that, and I'm not surprised.
Was the ramp? Was the metal
GTA
curling
ramp?
and falling perfectly into a ramp?
My guess is no, but it looked practical.
Maybe some of it was, but then the shots where you're inside of the cabin driving, those are probably fake.
Is this the best chase scene ever? What do you guys think of the chase scene?
Is this the best chase scene?
Batman or everything?
Batman or
I think it's
Fast and
Octavio.
Furious?
You're not gonna like this take, but I said this originally when we first watched the movie, but I like that chase more than anything in Fast and Furious. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna compare it to that.
What about like Mad Max Fury Road?
That's what
I
I
feel
was
like that's
thinking.
Better, no.
I feel like
I was thinking of Mad Max.
I think, Evan, you were describing it personally to me before. Like, Mad Max has what you described, I'm sure you'll talk about it, as your favorite part of a car chase, which is the wide shot.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Right.
My favorite like chase scenes are probably like besides the ones from Fury Road, I really like the chase scenes in the old like John Ford westerns. Like Stagecoach has this awesome shot of this like stagecoach like rushing through this open desert. It has this awesome wide shot that gets it from like the side. You can really just feel like the speed of everything going, man. It's pretty great. I thought the chase scene in this, I don't know, it was all right.
All right,
I
so
think
can you
I don't think it was
can
that
you
special.
can you mute Evan for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think the chase scene is like as a scene and the way it's shot isn't like I don't know. I wouldn't think it's like the best chase scene ever.
Yeah, no, I was
Not
obviously
that
being
I
hyperbolic.
have an apt
Okay.
comparison. To be fair, I don't have something that I can pull out of my ass.
I think
I'm like, this is
it's
better.
yeah.
I just personally like. I liked the intensity of it and like the way it starts and ends, but like
Well, it's the
like cinematically, I'd understand why it's not like a great. It's very like cut up,
yeah.
but I think like the point at which it happens in the movie and like the way it's paced and like just the way it's. I think like the beginning and the end of it are like very very good. Like the Batmobile starting, the way that he fucking like clearly wants to chase the Penguin. Like he could have just fucking stopped him, you know. Like he could have fucking brought the car forward and stopped him from getting into the car. Like I don't know, like he fucking
Yeah.
like lurches forward, waits for him to get in the car, and then takes off. And then like I think like the effect of like he is disregarding everyone in the chase's life just so he can get Penguin when he could easily get him like after.
Yeah,
You know what I
well,
mean? Like it's not like he'll
feeds
never
into the
find him.
vengeance thing, right? Like his
Yeah,
personality at the
exactly.
beginning of the movie, like
And the
he fucking
imagery
wants the
of
rush. Yeah.
Batman upside down coming out of the fucking
Ugh,
flames is
the
like
fucking
perfectly
yeah.
representative of what you just said. It's like fucking like it's just like what he is supposed to be, just like flipped on its head. He's like walking out of a pile of dead bodies, no doubt,
Yeah.
towards the Penguin, and then just like I don't know. I think like that aspect makes me really like that sequence in the movie.
I think the other thing, first of all, I was of course being hyperbolic. I don't think it's the greatest chase scene of all time, to be clear, but I think it is the best chase scene I've seen in a long time because of its purpose and intention. And Matt Reeves talked about this in the podcast, but the way they use mounted cameras, right? So they mounted the main two would be the mounting of the camera on the Penguin's car, where you're looking over his shoulder, the way he's looking over his shoulder at the Batmobile, and then you have the mount on the back of the Batmobile, you're going after the Penguin with the Batmobile, and it literally feels like, and I didn't think of this comparison until I saw the movie again yesterday, but it feels like a fucking monster chase because you don't like the fact that you don't get the wide shot that Evan was talking about, his favorite shot. It makes the Batmobile mysterious because you don't see the full Batmobile until the very end. You know what I mean?
You
It's
know, it
literally
feels
like
like
a
its own
fucking monster.
entity. It
Yeah.
doesn't even feel like Batman is chasing him. It feels like this fucking vehicle is. And also the way you don't see Batman get in the Batmobile. There's not and the initial shot is just like the Batmobile itself is made to be menacing. You don't even
Yeah.
see him in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that take a lot also because it like completely fits like into the thriller aspect of the movie. And I think my favorite part of the scene is the Penguin, like his fucking reactions at the end.
And it's for
but also
fucking nothing.
during. Yeah.
It's like it's all like you said. The part of the thriller thing is the detective Neo mystery thing is he was chasing a false lead. That all that action, all that thrill was for nothing because they couldn't fucking understand Spanish correctly because they
Yeah.
couldn't see the Riddler's riddle. Again, that goes to
Also-
show, that he's not the world's greatest detective yet. Yeah.
Yeah, just the way in which like the chase is like sequenced is like now that I think about it, and you could just say this is like, oh, the movie leaves these holes so that they can like lead the chase scene and it works. But like I think it's very obvious that like there's more thought put into it than that in making it so clear that Batman could have stopped him at different points. Like the way he's driving is so unnecessarily like menacing and aggressive. Like he doesn't stay on his ass. He like fucking cuts through and then like slams
Yeah.
through a brick wall just to like instill that sense of fear in him, I feel like. and then like he's like ramming the back of the car, but then lets off. Like I don't know, it feels
And you
like
see that-
psychological.
Yes, and you see that again tying back to Robert Pattinson's eyes. Like they cut to his face very few times in the beginning of the chase, I feel like.
Yeah.
But they do. And it looks like that specific part like you mentioned where he's cutting through you can see through the Penguin's face that he thinks he's lost him. And then he cuts through those like fucking cones. And you could see in his eyes like kind of that thrill that you're describing, I feel like. And that's why I feel like I have such a high praise for it, even though like depending on how you look at it, it's like an average car chase. But when you look at it through the lens of the movie,
not to get too ridiculous here, I feel like it's almost like not even like primarily a chase scene. Like I don't know, like I feel like there's a large part near like the second half of it. I mean, it's not like large, but in the context of the sequence, significant part of it is just like the Penguin freaking out and he has no chance of actually escaping, and you're just sitting there like watching him fucking like lose his mind as Batman is like inevitably approaching behind him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Colin
very,
Farrell did a really good job.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, it's interesting. I like the comparison you said of like a monster chase, and it feels like very like fucking horror movie.
It
but
also.
not.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all I was gonna say.
Oh, it also really caught my attention at how easy it was for Batman to get to the Penguin. Even in his suit. Like, in games and in previous movies, he had to go through a bunch of shit to just get to the big guy, you know? Especially in the games. So, it really surprised me how easy it was for him to, you know, even when he went inside of the club and fucking interrogated him, he just walked in, punched like 8 of his guys, and got to talk to him for, you know, in his private office for a certain amount of time. And then when he pulled up to the fucking, like, recycling center, I think it was, where they were doing the whole drops thing, like, he got tailed pretty easily by Batman and the cop and Catwoman, too, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know.
I think it just ties into the whole year 2 aspect of it, where these characters aren't the characters we know yet.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
true.
Like the Penguin isn't as big as he is, and that's shown throughout the movie that he's getting there, and I'm sure will be shown in the HBO Max series.
Also, I don't know if this is the level you were saying it on, Octavio. I just wanted to ask. Are you saying that in the sense of like it's like a different version of the Penguin, or like it doesn't even feel like a chase? It just feels like
No, it was definitely a chase, and it definitely felt like the Penguin, but just the way it was set up and the protection these like big drug boss mafia guys had, just it felt a little bit almost unrealistic to me, because I don't feel like they would be as vulnerable as they were in the movie.
I mean, Falcone isn't
you know?
vulnerable, right? He has to fucking walk through a hallway of guys with guns to get to him. He has to shut down the lights to the whole lounge.
That's true. That's very true, but even then, I don't know. Even Falcone, when he went to the fucking, or Falcone or whatever, when he went to the funeral, he didn't really have that much protection, and Bruce Wayne like fucking calls him out for it. I think
Well,
he's
no,
like,
the
or
thing
no,
is, though, is
Batman
like,
does. He's like, I'm surprised you left the shore or something, and he's like, you're gonna get shot or something like that, you know?
they have
But-
nothing to be afraid of, though. They have
yeah,
all
they
the
because
have
he
power.
the
owns everything.
protection of the
That's
entire
true.
city,
That's
but
true.
you don't
System.
know that at that point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're right.
That's
right.
another thing I forgot to bring up is it's really interesting like when you're like, wow, like a lot of these like people are so hostile and asshole-ish towards Batman, but Gordon isn't. And then like I mean I don't know, you don't go back and think about this at the end of the movie watching it once, I don't think, unless you're having a discussion about it or watch it a second time. But it's like so obviously intentional, like in that scene where it's like the initial police commissioner right before he dies when Batman is at the mayor's murder scene, like his reaction to looking at the mayor and seeing the No More Lies tape, the commissioner's like, Jesus, and then looks at Batman and he's like, oh, this must be your favorite fucking night of the year. Like, it's so clear that he's not just like an asshole, and he's not just uncertain of Batman, and Batman's not just like some freak publicly even. He is just like reacting how he should because he's involved in all of the corruption. You know what I mean? And he's seeing like, fuck, well, if somebody killed the mayor and this is the message they're sending, like, I'm involved. And also,
But
now we
also,
have someone who's outside of law enforcement
Mhm.
trying to help figure out what's going on. Like, we're fucked because that's their whole ring of
but also he was
protection,
still
right?
so assured of his protection in the system, the corrupt system, that he still went to the gym and worked out when he normally does. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool you get
Yeah.
both of those things,
Yeah.
depending on how you look at it. Just to just to kind of close up the Batmobile thing. Again, in the Adobe podcast, there's a very major portion when they talk about creating all these different sounds for the movie. And I don't want to like mess it up, but it's kind of absurd how they came up with the Batmobile sound. Like, they were just fucking around with all these different stock sounds, trying to figure out how to make it. And they obviously found like a car that I don't remember the name of which car it is, but like a 70s car for the actual engine sound. But that sound where you first hear it and it's like revving up, that's like that kind of high pitched thing, is actually the sound of a bottle rocket, but it's like pitched totally like askewed. I don't remember which way it's pitched, but it's kind of insane. It's like slowed down too. And I don't know, I just really recommend watching or listening to that podcast. It's really insightful.
Slud plus reverb.
Fart reverb.
Yes, where's the soundboard
way.
then? This entire
Only I have access to the sound.
I know.
Oh my god! Can you like do like a little spam one, like a?
They think I'm hiding the soundboard. I am. You know what that means?
Okay, this is the problem.
Time to end
This is the
this
problem
shit.
with this. Listen, this movie was great. What do you think? What do you want to see in the sequel? I'll say it. I think it's actually, this thing is so obvious they might not do it, but Mr. Freeze would fit perfectly in this world where it's like very grounded, but also has the mysticism kind of in the skies, so to speak. Like, I feel like Mr. Freeze would work really well.
I've got the plot of
But
the
it's
movie.
almost
Got the plot of the movie. All right, there's water everywhere. Mr. Freeze is an eccentric billionaire who comes in and says, "I will freeze all of the water." He freezes all of the water.
okay.
and then he uses this
And
opportunity.
then his wife gets frozen in the water, maybe by accident.
He accidentally
No, Nora.
Yes, and she's like frozen, and then she's in like the middle of the city somewhere. So he has to like do like an ice, like cut her out of the ice, but then he like puts her somewhere
And then
else.
he falls into the water too.
And then
so he has to build that suit.
And he talks like this for some reason. And he's
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
and he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they bring him back to reprise the character.
Well,
Knack
I
is
also-
back, baby.
I also feel like we can't talk about the sequel without really wrapping up the movie and talking about the Joker scene. And I just want to say off the bat that when I first saw it, I was like, did this have to be in the main movie? That was the one criticism I really had.
Yeah.
But after hearing like Matt Reeves talk about it and seeing the movie a few more times, I think it makes more sense. And just to sum up what he said, he basically said that his intention in bringing him in is not to set up the next movie. He doesn't even know he would put the Joker in the next movie, but it's to show that as Batman rises, criminals are rising, and show that kind of classic dichotomy of like, as you have someone dressing up like a bat and calling themselves the Batman, more people are going to come out on the other side of the scale and name themselves and become supervillains or whatever you want to call them.
Did you also
So like when you look at it that way, it makes sense.
I fuck with that, and I think I've only seen it once, and we talked about how I felt about it. Felt the same way, where it was like, oh, cool, setting up for a sequel. But I think something I read about it was interesting, but it left me with kind of conflicted feelings about it, because he said the original. I don't know if y'all saw this, but Matt Reeves was talking about it, and he said they shot another scene with the Joker where his identity was like obscured, and but like there were still like hints, and that basically the idea was while the Riddler was still like loose and Batman was getting all these messages, they were like Batman goes to Arkham and he like is trying to question a serial killer he's already like caught, and it's the Joker, and they do like a Silence of the Lambs tier like interview thing, and I think that sounds cool. I would have liked that a lot more, in my opinion, because he said that they then shot this scene and put that in instead, and I don't know why they did that.
I think the reason also, another thing I thought of when I first saw the movie is this gives you a resolution to the Riddler. The Riddler actually sees that his plan was like foiled by Batman and is distraught over it. You know what I mean? Like if that wasn't in there, the last time we see the Riddler is in that interrogation scene.
That's fair.
So I feel like that kind of works if you look at it that way. But I do think that scene that he's describing seems cool. He talked about in that same interview like getting to film like Batman sneaking into Arkham and making it very like haunted house tier. So that I mean it'll be cool to see when it comes out.
Yeah, he said it's gonna be released, which is cool. At some point.
Yeah, that's hype. I'm glad that they're actually gonna fucking like I guess release it. I don't know. I feel like that's something that they normally wouldn't do with a lot of shit like this.
Yeah,
Does that
I'm
make sense?
excited to see like if they do like I would watch an extended cut of this movie.
That's what I was just thinking and have thought multiple times.
Yeah, and at the same time I can understand why they would cut that scene from the theatrical cut. It's a lot. You know what I mean? There's like already a lot going on.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily think about like the other shit that would be required for that, like, you know, having to film like how he gets there, him deciding to go there, like it's more than just like putting that one scene in. So that makes sense. But sequels, to kind of loop back to that as we wrap up, I think when you said Scarecrow, I would love to see Scarecrow. I think that'd be great in this.
Yeah.
I think that my like, I don't know. Maybe my dream villain for this is like, I don't know how they. I mean, I think Scarecrow probably is my top. I also would potentially like to see like a different like sidekick introduced. We haven't had a Robin in a long time. I think a Robin would be cool. I think maybe it's a little early. Maybe that's like a third movie thing. But I think Robin deserves like a fucking good movie. Like make him an interesting character with an interesting story. Like that'd be cool.
Yeah, I agree. You could totally tie in to like the first Robin having the flying Graysons being killed in the circus.
Yeah,
and whatever. You could totally tie that in with the whatever the villain will be.
Yeah.
You think we'll see Clayface?
We'll see. Hugo Strange.
Hugo Strange. Dude, what if the next movie is just Arkham City? Or it's just called Batman Arkham City?
Oh shit!
And it goes in the order of the games, like the names.
It's called Batman Arkham City cutscene montage.
4K full movie.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Full game movie.
Yeah.
What are some other villains? I don't know. I'm having trouble thinking of some. Black Mask, I could see them too.
Dude, they could definitely bring in Black Mask.
I think
that's also one I could see being in the Penguin show.
True. Oh, that's so.
Because they haven't mentioned like any like reference to Roman Sionis or that whole like Sionis Industries thing. So I could see that happening.
Do you think
Deathstroke?
Maybe.
Yeah. I I don't want to see
I don't
it.
really.
I don't really.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
really
not
care for Deathstroke.
I'm not a big fan. I'm like,
Keep him in the Teen Titans. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could you? I could see them doing something like an Arkham Knight, where they have a character like the Red Hood or something come in and start like a military revolution or something.
well, there's
Like-
a lot more
Well, the
that
Red
needs to
Hood-
be done for that. Though.
Yeah, they have to do.
Yeah.
Robin.
But like in that
They
kind
could
of
do the Red
way,
Hood gang. That existed.
something like that. Yeah,
Mm.
like more of like a very
A gang that
right,
rises.
like violent right, like
Court of Owls. What the
ideology.
fuck are we talking
I feel like
about?
Court of Owls, like it's too soon
Ooh,
because you've already done.
yeah.
Like, oh, everyone's corrupt. Who's real and who? You know,
Yeah,
like, I feel like that's if they're gonna do that, definitely shouldn't be the
the
next
Mad
movie.
Hatter. What the fuck?
You'll never catch me, Batman.
The pig.
Actually, you could make a pretty dark Mad Hatter, which they kind of allude to in the Arkham games, where it's just like this guy like kidnapping girls and making them dress up as younger girls and calling them Alice. Like,
You know, and I
What
think
kind
like there's
fuck?
some like trippy, there's some like trippy Scarecrow tier shit
yeah,
like he does too. So, and I think that's good if they did in the next movie. I think they did like something good with this, where it was like take a character who is well known, not like the most well known Batman villain, but one of the most well known, and flip it on its head, do a very unique interpretation of it. So why not take a lesser known villain and do the same, you know?
I mean, I was saying this to these guys before, but could you see Killer Croc existing in this universe? For some reason, I don't know why, I can see it in my head.
Bro, I don't know how I feel about like the supernatural type character.
But I feel like he's rides the line. Him, Bane, they ride the line of like you can sort of interpret them in like a real world depending on how
I
you
think
look
a
at
good
it.
example that we talked about is like I could see Bane in this universe as like a fucking massive, unreal, like physically
Right.
supernatural character, not
Tom
like
Hardy
just
Bane.
a strong guy. Yeah.
But why? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about like them introducing like a.
Look, I'm not saying they should ever introduce Poison Ivy in this universe because that makes no sense. But like,
What's
I
the
don't know. Like, I
difference
feel like-
there? Once you introduce like magic tier shit, I don't know.
Killer Croc isn't magic.
No, what is he? He's
Well,
a fucking crocodile. What is like? What's his
I mean, it
origin?
depends, but he literally has a medical condition that turns his body into a crocodile, and it's like fucked up, and it's like very like tragic when it's shown in some comics,
Okay.
and it like makes him just like lose his mind and just murders people because he's fucking mentally unwell because he has a fucking fucked condition. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I feel like I don't know where people got the implication. I guess maybe Suicide Squad. 'cause,
Yes.
Like, yeah.
I'm just like I
That-
don't
yeah.
want that, and I feel like that's the same thing with someone like Bane, where it's like I don't know, Bane.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If you can put Mad Hatter in, you can put Killer Croc in.
No,
that make
no, because one of them is like could be just like fucking like crazy guy who uses like drugs on people. The other one is like this is unrealistic, and I don't know. Maybe that's like
But
where
I don't
we.
mind. I feel like we've hit a point in this with this movie at the end where the door is a little bit open for a slight tinge of unrealistic. Because there is unrealistic things. Batman eats bullets in this movie. You know what I mean? He's shot so many times. You know, he must have pretty good armor. You know, I don't know.
He doesn't eat an explosion at point
Yeah,
blank
yeah,
range.
that too.
was one of my problems.
See, but I don't have a problem because of the way I view it is it's not fucking Nolan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
He has good armor, except if you know exactly where to
it's Arkham Knight reference. So, like, okay, obviously don't put Solomon Grundy in the next movie.
Oh.
Oh my god. Only a zombie.
Oh.
Like,
We talked about Calendar Man, right? Did we talk about Calendar Man?
I don't think we've talked about
No.
Calendar Man yet.
No, not in this. I thought we maybe brought him up before. I think Calendar Man could be a good villain.
But I feel like, see, this is the problem I feel like with treating this not saying that you're doing this specifically, but like being like, well, it has to be like mostly realistic, or like it has to be realistic because then everything just becomes shades of the Riddler in this movie. Calendar Man is just another serial killer. You know what I mean? Like, what does he have that's special and interesting?
Yeah, that's
why... something I was just thinking that's problematic when I try to think of like what I want to see in making it more grounded. Yeah, like it is difficult.
Like it's either you choose a serial killer and it's the same thing as Riddler to some degree, or you introduce a little anarchy and you know,
Two-Face.
I don't know. I do think that they have a very heavy and large task ahead of them with the sequel.
What do you guys think about
Scarecrow? I think they have to do Scarecrow.
I think yes, something with drugs. Scarecrow.
Scarecrow would be fucking.
Because I think obviously this is like really like like imposing kind of, but I think it also creates like something that's like reality shifting is interesting in terms of like if Batman is like trying to enter a new period of like what he views as like what he should be now, and then it's like turned on his head by like by this villain. I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, and it opens the door for the third movie to maybe introduce a villain who's a little even more kind of out of the box.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you guys are right. Like Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, something where it's like the next step but not too far would be good.
Exactly, yeah.
Again,
even
Mr. Freeze, come on.
How would they do Mr. Freeze? I don't know.
Mr. Freeze works perfectly, all right? I don't know if you played Arkham Origins DLC Cold Heart.
No.
But... or you've seen the Batman the Animated Series episode, which is much more popular. But
I have seen Batman and Robin.
All right, basically, Mr. Freeze, long story short, the scientist who has a wife who has a terminal condition. He makes a deal with a shady billionaire, or the company who he works for is owned by a shady billionaire. He makes a deal with him that he'll work on this, it depends, but like this other experiment, if he gets the resources to fund more research to save his wife. Okay? He does this other shady experiment. It goes wrong. He gets into it depends, but like, that's how he becomes the way he is, where he only survives in sub-zero temperatures. So he has to build the suit to be able to survive. So he's constantly in a sub-zero temperature. And at the same time, it affects his wife, who becomes frozen. Oh, no, sorry, excuse me. I'm thinking of something else. He freezes his wife to get more time to save her because she's terminally ill.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like all those elements can be used to make a pretty realistic. You know what I mean?
I think
like,
that would be cool. Yeah.
So like, it's not that fantastical if you know.
I think origin. And I was familiar with that. I just think that like, I think naturally people think of like Batman, Robin, Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. And that's the thing. People thought of the Riddler as Jim Carrey, and they fixed that. They can fix Mr. Freeze too.
That's so true.
It's so true. It's so obvious to me. And like I said, it's so obvious they might not do it. But
I mean, it's essentially just a guy with the flamethrower, except reverse.
Flamethrower.
I like that. I like those good. I was thinking flamethrower in reverse, in which it just sets him on fire.
It's like a liquid nitrogen flamethrower.
Yeah. Anyway, God, we could talk for hours about Batman.
We have. In fact, we have.
God, we could talk for...
Holy shit.
We could talk for days about Batman.
We've been talking about... It's 4 hours of recording. We were, like, fucking around talking about how to record the podcast for an hour before that. What's the longest Filmatic ever? 4.5
Shrek
hours?
Shrek podcast with 3 hours and 45 minutes.
We're gonna beat it.
I don't think so. After we cut the chaos that happened at the beginning.
Oh no! Don't cut.
Oh, now don't cut it.
We'll see.
No, I think we should cut it.
Cut some. Cut the ones that could, get a little sus eyebrow.
Yeah. No.
All right.
Yeah, we could talk about Batman Forever, but Batman Forever. We could talk about Batman Forever. No.
Dude,
We
okay.
can talk
What do you
about
think about
Batman
it?
Forever.
It's another podcast.
Another hour gone.
I think we should do Filmatic fans look forward to the Departed Filmatic episode,
Yes.
the Batman,
and also Batman. Maybe just the other Batman movies.
I think that would be
just as a whole.
cool. I think even if we did like smaller pieces, because I feel like if we did every Batman movie, that would be like a 6-hour podcast, which I'm okay with.
I'm okay with.
But
Yeah.
No, maybe just like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever.
yeah,
Something
I
like
think
that.
start there. I would be down to do like
Yeah.
a Nolan trilogy. We could do Keaton. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Definitely do Keaton before he appears in The Flash.
True.
That'd be good.
That'd be
For
good
if
promo.
we do end up doing like a several movie Batman podcast, I want to see if we can all get together and get like camera set up on a table and like some mics and just do like traditional podcast setting and just like eat and chill, you know?
Could be cool.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Could be rough though. We gotta invest in fucking cameras and shit. Is the problem?
Oh, dude, iPhones these days we could just have like 2 or 3 phones recording and shit.
Well,
like,
then
they
we
have
also
pro-
need mics and to be able to sync it up. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a lot of work. But I do want
That's
to do
fair.
it one day.
Yeah.
Have an in-person podcast for sure. Yeah. So
Let's get
guess
some
we just-
Yetis. Sorry.
it's straight.
You know what? Even if
It's
we
straight
don't
to
get to 3:45, I just want to say I'm glad all of us, even you, Connor, are here for the second longest Filmatic podcast.
Dude.
This movie's
What am I
worth
doing?
it. This movie's worth it.
Yeah, no, this was good. And let's do the outro. Connor, is there anything you want to plug? No.
My new album,
All right, fucking burnout. Then we have Darian.
So
what's
like
up?
derogatory or
Yeah, I know that was
fucking
the
Fuck you.
burnout. Fucking
Dude, he got burnt out for the podcast.
Darian, anything you want to plug? Any vigilantism you want to mention?
Huh. I've got nothing.
I don't care what happens to me.
True.
This is
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm at
Sorry.
a loss for
Yeah,
words.
you're good. You're good. It's late.
Don't ask me what's on my mind. You know what I mean?
Casey,
thank you. It's always a pleasure to join the Filmatic podcast. I'm really happy with this one, especially. I think this is a great podcast. Don't forget your cling wrap and bring your rifles.
rifles are good. Yeah.
What caliber?
Can we bleep all that?
They're called-
It's like
They're called combat tactical masks. They can be found at the Winter Supply Store on Gotham Ave.
I think we need
Jackets too.
Jackets.
I think we need to do some like comedic bleeping and maybe some like soundboard shit to really send the podcast off. Yeah, your thoughts?
Sure.
We do like
Okay, it's literally not working. Okay.
there we go.
I can't.
I like that. I like the fucking goblin.
Yeah, it's a
I
good combo.
wanna do a plug.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I wanna.
I didn't get to sign off. Fuck.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
sorry.
I'm Casey.
Signing off.
Signing off. And if anyone has watched 4 hours of this podcast, thank you for being here.
I'm signing
Salutations.
off.
All right, and Octavio, what did you want to
Alright.
plug?
Well, I wanna, even though I wasn't directly involved, I wanna also thank AMC for helping us, helping the show, getting
Thank
you guys
you.
the tickets, and I want
Fuck
to thank
AMC. They
the
didn't invite
podcast
me to the.
itself. I want to thank the fucking podcast itself because this is fun. This is just fun, just to talk about movies and shit. Even if, like, I don't know, even if we're just fucking around, just talking, like, it's just fun to do it with you guys. I don't know.
Yeah, man, that's the goal. It's just for us, at the end of the day.
Eh, fuck it, bro. You gotta start somewhere. For all we know,
YouTube, Spotify, Apple
YouTube,
Podcasts.
Spotify.
They're all big platforms. We can't be everywhere.
God, that intro was incredible. That's what I want to plug. That was an incredible intro written by Casey.
Yep.
And I'll put that in the Instagram post, so you
Thank you.
guys check it out.
Very,
Evan,
very proud of
is
it.
there anything you want to plug? Would you get platinum in Rocket League during this podcast?
I've already been demoted to gold. Dang. No, I don't have anything to promote. Except for, I guess, Burnout's new album. I've been sort of helping him out with the.
Yeah, you made that
some of the
album
art.
Yeah,
I helped a little bit.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you guys check it out. You Don't Need Me on Spotify.
Yeah.
Burnout. All right, Filmatic crew. There's a lot of good stuff coming up. A lot of great movies to talk about. We'll see you soon. And yeah, if you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your
Dear.
tier?
Cheer is a tool.
Tears. That's good. That's good. Tears.
your dear? What is your dear? Say my name.
What did you
Goddamn
Cheer.